I used rap back in the 90s, now I'm back on my own grounds, putting forth this ancient shit. You can hear it in the sound. I used rap back in the 90s, now I'm back on my own grounds, putting forth this ancient shit. You can hear it in the sound, my voice, giving you scholarship and there's no choice. I'm called Maine, so my main objective is go as I came, like Cain. We kill up our brothers because of the Bible way. Somebody that took the recessive brain, put it in the black man's head. My folks, they should all roll out with me just like these books I read. I'll bring your ass from amongst the dead, like I said. I'm bred, tell motherfuckers what the ancestors said. I'm bred to kill white supremacy as dead. I'm bred to tell you all I know about the melanin molecule. I wake sleep mass about it, they slump and send them to school. The solar am rules over a holographic attitude. That means that my demeanor is set to tell your ass the truth. That means that my position is here to give your ass the scoop. Don't need a Benz when I ride. I'm a guy, a new input. I do this. Self-initiation to send one through this. Study MOTEP, come up with the conclusion. Medical association is ruthless. My conclusions is to take these words, these adjectives, nouns, and verbs, providing a spark for your spine, so when I speak them, they'll be heard. From the heart to the pineal, spirituality will show you what's really real. You God and man form, and the solution ain't the deal. To worship something outside yourself is to worship something inferior to yourself. You send it to us sin, so the only one who can save your ass is self. Sight beyond sight, like lion, though I come with my eye attached to my sword. Heart precede my walk, actions precede my thoughts. So I'm off to take the walk, is how I be dealing with my thoughts. I be staring at my people, y'all wanna be gods or not. I'm an alchemical nutcase. My pathwork got me moving at my own pace. I'm called Maine, so my main objective is to bring the pain I can't get fucked with. Literally, I'm in the coast. I brought my fire from the heavens, I'm Prometheus. I shine my light in the darkness, that makes me Lucifer. Get it? Psychologically, I'm inclined to do this shit till you can't fuck with it. Crushing every rapper, they don't have the mental capacity. Ain't talking about shit on their music, you motherfuckers is sloppy. So I'm back from the grave, knowledge I crave. Then I get assassin pussy, I'm Dionysus with my thesis. Raising my kundalini, I'm out the bottle, I'm the genie. People judge me how they want, but they really can't beat me. People push me to the point, but they really can't see me. With a camera lens and a bunch of friends in this 3D they living in. Let me hear that on.
All right, people, peace. Peace and greetings. Welcome, everybody. Coming to you from beautiful, sunny, and warm Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Voice might be a little raspy tonight. Allergy season. Dealing with a little bit of, standard allergy bullshit. So I might have a little bit of a crispy voice tonight, just to give you the heads up. But I'm going to stay hydrated. I got my water here, my vitamin C drops. So I'll do my best. So if I start sounding like Barry White and shit, you guys know why. All right, we want to welcome everybody to the show. As you know, my name is Fu Manchu. Let me stop. I've been needy here. While we're waiting for people to file in and continue the series of what we're finishing up with this week and next week, leading into the ritual, believe it or not, which is only 10 days away. Like I've been saying since it seems like, I don't know about you guys, but for me, since right before the holidays, like Halloween time from last year till now, these months have been flying by. I'm talking about flying by to me. I feel like I snapped my finger and the whole month is gone. Felt like I was just recently talking about it was the beginning of April. And now here we are, already slightly past the midpoint of April, and April's pretty much almost gone. So next Friday, not this Friday coming up, next Friday, April 26th, we are all prepared and set to do the Luciferian rite of Azazel, where we'll be invoking the aspect of Azazel via Luciferian sorcery and magic. That's all I can tell you about the ritual on the surface. For those Outside of those, we already know who is coming. For those still pondering it, next Wednesday is the cutoff, so that would be the 24th. So you still have up until next Wednesday, the 24th, if you want to come. But again, just need to email me, request an invite. And as I said many times in the past, and part of that we're going to discuss tonight in the material, we will basically have a brief conversation to make sure it's a right fit. When we do ritualistic work, we want to make sure you, the individual, have a general idea of what we're doing and to make sure it's something you want to do. Because as I've said before in the past, the work that we do, it's not just for the fuck of it. It's not just for the fun of it. We don't just do it to be doing it. We do it with an intent. So each of us can grow individually and come together collectively to do that. So again, you have up until next Wednesday, the 24th, to request an invite. Again, people emailing me about the next set of online class sessions. Again, I have not set a date for that. I'm focused again on finishing the current session, which has a couple more weeks left in it. We're knee deep in that. My focus is solely on that right now. It takes a lot of time, a lot of energy. And for those that are in this room taking the class, they know no matter how much time we put towards it, it just seems like we never have enough time. Time's a motherfucker, right? We talked about that last week, but we make it work. Well, yes, somebody had emailed me. We will. There will be some other subject matter in that class and in the next upcoming online sessions. We visited, somebody had emailed about will there be a curriculum exclusively on sex magic. We covered it in vampire magic in 2 sessions prior to that. We will, this one will be a little bit different in the upcoming, but like I say, once this session is done, I'll focus on the curriculum for that and I'll have that out. But again, I'm definitely aiming 100% certain for late summer, early fall. That I can tell you for sure. It's the best thing I can tell you right now. Again, once this session is over, I kind of take a break for a little bit. Gives me time to formulate things. Probably a couple weeks after this session is over, I'll have a better gauge for you exactly when that next session will start. But you can email and inquire. And you see the email right in the description box of the video. And we will, and I believe May 26th, people have inquired. I mentioned again back in around January, February, and totally forgot getting caught up in all the other shit that's going on. I will be doing some individual private sessions, all right, outside of the whole, seasonal session. The seasonal session is better because it's formulated. Trust me, if you take it, it speaks for itself. It's formulated and put together a certain way. So in my opinion, based on the curriculum and the material and the work that we do as a group, it's better to take the whole entire session. But I will be, not all the time, I will be once a month or once every other month offering an individual Friday night session. It'll be a private session. I won't be doing that too much, maybe a couple times every other month or so. That'll start in May. But I'll have information, all that by the middle of next month. Because people have asked about that, because I did mention it back in January, February, but again, totally slipped my mind with all the other shit that's going on. But I'll have more information to come on that too. All right. Spiritual readings and consultations. I'm always busy with that. It's constant. It's consistent. Just give me at least a 2-day window. You could email me, same email. Be specific if you are looking for a spiritual consultation or a reading. And I've talked about it in the past, just to make sure we're on the same page. There is a difference. A consultation, as I've mentioned before, it's kind of a free-for-all. You can utilize that if you have any questions, or if you want to focus on specific areas on this path. You can use it for whatever you want. It's kind of a free-for-all. A spiritual consultation is where I would use a system of divination to consult, as I like to call it, the demonic spirits. and we just go with whatever information comes through. So I want you to be clear when you're sending me an email, and to kind of save some of the in-between emails. You basically just need to let me know your best times of availability and the time zone you live in, which is very important. Some people forget to include that. If you're West Coast, if you're Central Time, or if you're out of the country, I need to know that so we can schedule correctly. All right. And give me a 48-hour window for that. Again, you can email me, same email address. And then the last thing we've been putting out there, you see it on the Instagram, the Facebook. I've been putting it here in the community section of the YouTube page. We have the big conference coming up in October. We've already had several people inquire about it, which is good because, as I said last week and the week before, it gives you plenty of time to prepare, book tickets, hotels. It is a 3-day event, 100%. We have a facility where we do it. It is in the Fort Lauderdale area, the North Fort Lauderdale area. And it'll take place from October 25th to the 27th. There'll be a multitude of presentations, different classes, speakers. There will be 3 separate rituals for that weekend. There will be a group dinner that we will be doing like we did last year, and some socializing and some fun and just kicking it. So it's a nice 3-day event. If you're planning to come to something, that'd probably be the one to come to. It's a great time of the year to come down here. Fall's when the weather starts cooling off, October going into November. So it's just a good time of the year to do it. So that'll be October 25th to the 27th. All right. So that's pretty much what we got going on for the announcements. Now that I got that shit out the way. What I want to continue with. We've been talking about, as you know, if you've been watching the last couple of weeks, we have been talking about the Clip-Off, the Citra Akra a little bit last week, the Demonic Path, the Samael Lilith, before that, the Path of Azazel. All this is connected to get us to what we're going to talk about tonight. Void and darkness, the gateway to the demonic realm. We talked a little bit and kind of left off last week where we were kind of heavily getting into the concept of time, or I should say, the false concept or illusionary aspect of linear time, which keeps a lot of us confounded mentally, emotionally, spiritually, because that false concept of time is basically how most of us govern or put our lives in accordance with. And that's why I always say, you hear me always say, it feels like the months fly by. When you are not confounded by time, you are an individual that says that all. And I'm not just saying that because you hear me saying that. I literally feel like time flies by, well, illusionary time. I never feel like there's enough of time to do everything. It gets so caught up. And when you're so focused on what you're doing, it just seems like it goes like that. That's a telltale sign that you're not trapped or confounded by this linear time. That's why I always say that. To really understand that void and darkness, which we're going to talk about and go in depth, we're going to continue from Mason Asenat's book. We will continue with a section there that we left off. We couldn't get to last week because we were talking about this. In essence, what we call or what we label that void, that darkness, that void is that unexplainable space that time really cannot define or explain. This is the demonic realm. It starts with the darkness. From the darkness leads into the void. Now, this can be applied on a multitude of levels. This can be applied when understanding your subconscious mind, when understanding the psyche, when understanding how you delve deep, quote unquote, into the power of the subconscious mind. Because that void, or what we might term that space, that unexplainable thing that really has no explanation, right? You can even liken it to a black hole, right? A black hole is, recently they so-called claim they did, took pictures, some woman, it was all over the news last week, right? There's this mystique about what the black hole is. Yeah, we got the basic shit on the surface. It's like a vacuum. Anything that gets close to it, it sucks it in, right? These are the basic terminologies you hear what a black hole is. Well, we can use that same metaphor, right? That black hole or that void or that space, right? Or space-time continuum, right? There's another term you hear, right? When we apply that to what we're talking about here, the porthole, the gateway to other dimensions or realms, we're really talking about it from a mental perspective. I'm just using the analogy or using a metaphor of the black hole. So let's not get all scientifical and say it's not the same thing. We know that from a scientific standpoint. I'm just using the metaphor. All right. So that void is the unknown, is where we really need to explore on this path if we truly want to grow and understand ourselves, right? We talk about doing the shadow work. The void represents a part of ourselves, the unexplored part of ourselves, the aspects of ourselves that we neglect, parts of ourselves that, one, contain our divinity, that contain our rage, that contain our lust, our power, our desire, all those things that all those elementals that make us up. In there is where what we call the primordial chaotic energy is formed, right, and created. Now, from the clipothic standpoint, which I'm about to get into, where we kind of left off last week, I was using the concepts of the clip pot, as you know, and the citra aqua, which is kind of that bridge, to kind of, I was using that as an example, or using it as an example to make that connection. And that's why I'm utilizing this. Now, the different aspects of the adversary, by the many different titles, we know, be it Satan, which literally means the adversary, Iblis, the rebellious one, Azazel, Samael, Set in ancient Egypt, right? These are all just different representations or aspects of this adversary. So we've been utilizing those different concepts to kind of show you how this all connects. So having said that, now, if you missed the last 2 weeks' videos, I would suggest you go back and watch them. It'll help, because it might bring up some questions and material that was already covered on those videos. And also, let me give a shout out to Brother Duma, who I know is in here somewhere. This is a piece he actually made and sent me. And I want to shout out, I know there's people that come and support the channel that offer services and products. So I want to recognize them. Brother Duma, like you see him in the room, hit him up. He some of you know or may not know, he makes occult jewelry. Sister Baffa Marger, she does phenomenal work. She's made me a piece. Check her out. You'll see her in here when she's here. I'm not sure if she's here now. I'm not gonna let the cat out the bag. Raven Hecker's working on some phenomenal shit, which I'm just gonna throw it out there. It's gonna be done soon and presented. Some of you know what, you deal with her on a certain level with it. So we got a lot of talent amongst us. So let's make sure we're conscious of that. Especially when it comes to, our products and things we utilize on this path, be it jewelry, be it natural herbs and things of that nature. Make sure we, communicate with each other and do business with each other on that level. So shout out to our brother Doomer and all the other people that contribute to this path in some shape, form, or fashion. And one announcement I forgot in the beginning. Remember, Thursday night we'll be back on with the Thursday night shows. Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum will be on this Thursday evening, so don't forget to tune in Thursday night. We're going to continue our conversations with him and his work, and have your questions ready. Like I said before, when we get these authors here that write a lot of these books that we read, there's a lot of material that a lot of us gathered and read. Get a chance. The objective is, when they're on here, pick their brains. What inspired them to write this stuff? What were their sources of inspiration? These are things that can help us. We got to really, have that mindset when we have them on. And then remember, the following week on the 25th, next Thursday, Val Cadman will be back on the show. So, again, have your questions ready. And I plan on, I think next Tuesday or or the following Thursday after Balcabin, we're gonna get Priestess Aset Ra-Amen back on the show. That'll be soon. Yeah, so let's get into this. Having said that, let's get into the rest of the material, kind of where we left off last week. Let me put on my old man glasses, and again, if my voice is a little crispy, I get sometimes a little allergies that pop up here and there, so I got a little allergy. So if my voice starts sounding like Barry White, you know why. All right, I was using a document last week on Scribe. I mentioned it, and I'm glad Brother Duma corrected me. I thought Mason Astronaut the whole time was a dude, and apparently it's a female. I don't really pay attention to that shit, but it's a document you can get on Scribe. It's called Clipothic Meditations, and I know last week somebody put it in the link. So if you're interested in finding the link, I'm sure somebody will put it up there. But it's a document from Scribe. All right, it's a pamphlet. All right, so I want to start on page 12, where we left off. And it was talking about once we start unlocking the different aspects of what we call, and again, we're using the term, the demonic realm. The demonic realm, or as we were talking about last week, when we break that false illusionary concept of linear time, we were using the example of the secondhand clock, the tick and the tock. And in between the tick and the tock, there's a pause or a space where that time is not really being calculated. So we know this false concept of time that we use, 60 seconds in a minute, 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours in a day, 31 days in some months, 30 days in others, 29, 4 years in 1 month, February 28, the other 3. We know this is not factual time. It's off. It's mathematically incorrect. And when we look at the basic shit of it, if you're counting seconds, which is a trick in itself, should be first. When you have a tick, space, tock, we're using that metaphor between the tick and the tock as the demonic realm, or that void, or that darkness that is not accounted for, that is not explained, where these demonic bands vibrate on a certain frequency, where that's where we are able to tap in and connect via your ritualistic work. And obviously it starts mentally. Now we know all of this point, in order to manifest this objectively on the physical realm, it starts in the mental, right? We were talking about the abyss and things of that nature. So it's kind of where we left off. So I'm kind of going to pick up from there and continue, all right? So we left off here. Once unlocked, these doors cannot be closed back again. And this is why we were talking a little bit last week about when you start opening yourself up to these energies, be prepared for them, because you can't really, lock them and send it. You got to be able to control and facilitate the energy. What happens is when an individual opens those doors sometimes and makes themselves receptive to some of this energy and they're not ready or prepared for it, it can cause problems. But let's go on and continue. If our magical skills are not developed enough to withhold and harness these forces, they will only wreak havoc around us, transforming our reality in many uncontrolled ways and creating much chaos and confusion, right? Now, it is our job as adepts, as magicians, to make order out of the chaos. But when you're not prepared to work with these energies, that's when the chaos consumes you. Because the adept who is in control is always controlling and mastering the chaos. Right? We liken that many times. We talked about the symbolic story of Set keeping a pep at control or at bay, right? Representing the adept being able to make order out of his chaos and knowing that all things manifest from chaos. But unfortunately, there are some people who don't have that skill level to control the chaos. They might think they do. They might say all the right things, but when it actually happens is an entirely different story. What do I mean by that? Liken it to remember growing up, and I can only connect with myself as a male growing up, right? There was a lot of dudes who practiced sports, were good in practice. There was a lot of dudes, who practiced martial arts or boxing, but when it came down to the actual thing, they sucked ass, right? Because it's different when it's actually happening as opposed to talking about it, right? You truly know you're prepared to master your chaos when that chaos is actually thrown out. When you it's, it's learning, it's called that old concept, learning as you go, training on the job. That's how you really know. It's great. You can read books. It's great. You could say all the right things, because I know we all, as adepts, male and female, that lay claim to being on this path. We would like to think that we have complete control over it. Now, I'm sure most of us do, but then you should really ask yourself, do you? Right? All right, but let's continue. There are magicians whose worlds broke apart after they started working with the clip hop or the demonic realm. Their family members died. Their relationships broke. They lost their jobs and financial ability. Their health deteriorated, and they were suddenly faced with more problems they can ever imagine. And I'm going to tell you something. In one of my first black magic orders that I went into, and I'll never forget, and this is going back several years, one thing that was explained to me in that initial interview process is what it's describing right here, literally, in detail. Because when you start tapping into these different energies, right? Like when you start opening that porthole or that gateway, right? We always talk about on the show, bringing, it brings the change you need, and you can confuse that for the change you want. Well, this is not bullshit here when it says it can literally turn your whole world or life upside down. And I remember being told this initially by elders, getting initiated in certain, you be prepared for that. It makes you see things for what they are, not for what you think they are anymore, not for what you thought they were, right? It does bring that tumultuous change, and you have to be prepared for it. And this is why removing the spooky shit, when we say the dangers of black magic, we're not talking about the Hollywood shit that you see on TV, being possessed by demons and fucking vomit being hurled out of your mouth like The Exorcist. That's not what we're talking about. You can fuck yourself up, though, as we talked about last week. I've seen people have nervous breakdowns. Their health can deteriorate. They open themselves up, as we talked about last week, for walk-ins, etc. That is a part of it. But I've also watched, literally, when you're working with these energies to bring about change, you might find out everything that's currently going on in your life right now could be your very significant other, your job, your career, your lifestyle, where that gets all turned completely upside down. Because when you're working with these energies, it's going to address what needs to be addressed. There's many people that found out they thought that the career or the path that they chose in life was the path they were supposed to be on. And I'm not just talking about spiritually, I'm talking about career or life, and that gets turned completely upside down. That I want to be clear, that's what this is talking about. So this is why I'm saying, don't get caught up in this because it's a hip thing to do. It's gonna bring that change, the change that's needed. And you may not recognize it because you may think that's not what you need. Because you might think you want to come on this path and be all dark and gloomy and or vampiric or all chaotic and all that shit. But be careful what you wish for. That's why I was saying just a couple of minutes ago, are you really in control of your chaos? I'm not talking about the everyday bullshit chaos that comes. I'm talking about, have you been tested and put through the fire? Ask yourself that really now. All right. So we need to be very conscious of this when proceeding forward on this path and opening up these gateways to these demonic realms and working with these energies because of what it's saying here. And this is not an exaggeration. And I'm telling you firsthand, I was told similar stuff like this in certain orders that I belong to. And I clearly remember those discussions, right? So I would put that out there too. And again, it's not to frighten anybody because that's not what it is, but it is to make people aware. Because it's easy just to say, yeah, I'm in control. You are in control if you have the skill set to be in control. See, that's what's left out. Everybody has the ability. Every single individual has the ability, has the power to always be the master and be in control. No doubt. That's not what is being the issue being put here. But Not everybody has the skill set to bring that out. That's a fucking reality. That's a fact. This is why some people fail and fall flat on their face and don't get results, or have some of the issues just mentioned, and others are successful. That's just a product of what I'm saying. That's a factual, because the results speak for itself. So you could say, I'm the God, I'm the master, I'm this and I'm that, or whatever, but are you a living example of it? This is what I mean when you hear me say that all the time. Are you a living example of what you teach? Because you can't say you're all this and that, but yet your everyday persona and your life doesn't reflect it. That's a problem. So it shows there's a disconnect. Something's not right. But let's continue. It is for a reason that this word comes with many warnings from those who have walked this path for a while, as well as those who have never dared to take the first step. On the other hand, such happenings do not necessarily signal the failure on the path. Klepothic currents are fierce and often confront us with harsh and chaotic situations, clearing the ground for something new to rise. So the chaos and all that destruction is not for naught when you work with this path. It's happening because it's clearing the way for something greater. That's the change you need. Meaning, you might have been working this job for the last 10, 15 years and have this illusionary house and picket fence and this trophy wife or this trophy husband. And you think, or you've convinced yourself in your mind that this is your path. This is what your life was laid out to be. And then boom, the tornado of change comes. And then everything is turned upside down because something else was dictated to show you otherwise. And this is what it's talking about. And this happens, people. I've seen it happen to many people. I've seen it happen certain aspects to myself. When one thing, my social circle, that completely turned. As you've heard me mention in videos before, probably people I talked to 5, 6, 7 years ago, I don't even talk to now because I have my reasons, because that had to be cleared from my space. Because sometimes you think something is productive for you on the surface and it's not. It's actually stagnated to your personal growth and your energy. See, this is doing real shadow work. When we say do shadow work on self, it's being able to identify those areas in your life where you need the change. And then when you identify them, it's about proceeding forward and carrying out work to do the change. And not all the change is pleasant. It can be very painful because you're going to shed and sacrifice a lot of things along the way. That's a reality, people. All right. So let's continue. Okay. All depends on the attitude. Remember, I said a few weeks back, I've talked over the years, your approach has a lot to do with it. Your approach and how your method and how you approach your work is going to affect the results you get big time. All right. Your approach has a lot to do with it. All right. If the left-hand path initiation is taken step by step and approached with cautiousness and responsibility, right? I always ask people, what is one of define to me being a god or a goddess? What does that mean to you, right? You always get the generic bullshit. We're the original this and that, and we have to build, we are God by nature, we are gods and God, but they never tell you anything in detail exactly what that means. Well, here's a basic definition of what I'm getting. It's called being responsible. When you say you're a god or a goddess, you now have a certain level of knowledge, So now you have to take responsibility for your actions or lack thereof, for your successes and your failures. And as I said before, it is your duty and responsibility only to those who show an interest, not to force this information on other people, because this isn't for everybody. We know this. We've talked about this. But when a certain individual presents themselves as genuine, it is your job and responsibility to teach and educate them. But the difference is with us on this path, we're not trying to go out and save the world like all these other conscious movements, because we know that's an illusion. We know that's not a reality. See, we don't waste our energy doing bullshit like that. We only go to those individuals that present themselves of showing a sincere intent of being interested. That's the difference. So It's very important to understand that. All right. It becomes a road to knowledge and power, but if we let ourselves be consumed by fear, doubt, or regret, it is a direct route to self-destruction. Now, I've talked about this many times before, right? When you're doing work on this path, self-doubt can be one of your most destructive aspects that can literally tear your ass down and destroy you. There's so many people who I see are their own worst enemy on this path when they're carrying out their magical work. Because if we say we're the gods or the goddesses and everything lies within us, it's in the power of our mind, it's activating the psyche. I agree with all that shit, right? Sounds good. But carrying it out is a whole nother thing now. And self-doubt is the number one thing I see where it destroys people's magical power and ability. I've watched people do work and then second guess it after they're done. What do I mean by that? I've literally had people do ritualistic work and email you, did I do it right? Do you think I should have did this? Do you think I did that the right way? First of all, there is no right or wrong way. Let's get that out of our heads. It's your way, the way that works for you. And the very fact that you put it out there in the ethers, did I do this or did I do that? You are destroying the power of the work that you already put out there now. So it is destined to fail. Not because any spooky force or some external entity intervened and destroyed it. You did by way of your self-doubt. That's the difference. So it is a hard discipline for a lot of people on this path to overcome self-doubt. Now, a lot of people, again, I know a lot of people on the surface say, oh, no, not me. I got my shit together. I'm this and that, and I'm powerful. But subconsciously, it's there, people. Let's stop fronting. It's there. All right. The Clickpothic initiatory path is based on 11 levels of the Tree of Night, which together constitute 11 steps or initiations in the process of self-deification. The first step is where the aspiring initiate begins the journey into the night side, which represents the opening of the consciousness for the energies of the dark tree. These initiatory levels bring the initiate to the heart of darkness and transform a man into God as promised by the serpent in Genesis chapter 3, verse 5, and it says, your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. And Nakash, as he's called in the Hebrew in that text, the whisperer, Kanas, right, told the truth in that story. Because the biblical God lied to Adam and Eve and told them if they ate from that tree, that they would surely die. Did they die, people? No. So who was telling the truth? The serpent or God? Because who really in this story is God and who's this, according to religious theology, who really is the God here and who's really the devil in this story? I think it's a little bit mixed up because that biblical God was in fear of anything coming remotely close on his level. So he created this. The story just doesn't make no sense. I don't even want to waste my time going through it. We talked about it last week. It's all bullshit and fuckery. How you going to put something in a garden, right? And tell everybody, you can have all this shit here, that, but that right there, don't fuck with that. You know, it's like putting a kid in a room and putting candy on the table and say, hey, look, you can play with everything else in this room, but don't touch the candy on the table. What's the first thing you think is going to happen, people? So, and right there out the gate, the story's fucked up. It's shady. It's not even right. So whoever's writing these stories is really insulting our intelligence, all right? Excuse me. But anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on that. Here's where we're trying to get to the meat. The last and 11th step, which is taken on the Thamiel level, leads into the void beyond the limits of the universe known to man. Each kliptha represents the antithesis of the respected Sephirah on the Kabbalistic tree, right? And its energies influence the day side reality in ways contradictory to the Sephirothic principles. These manifestations can be purely metaphysical, such activities of demons, evil spirits, and other beings popularly associated with the supernatural lore, but they can also reveal themselves through physical phenomena, such as natural catastrophes. All sorts of accidents and misfortune are normal. Mundane issues of everyday life. In the traditional Kabbalah, the gate to the tree of night is the hidden Sephirah Daf, knowledge. It opens the way to the so-called tunnels of Set, right? Now we're talking about the highest form of the adversary. If you really understand the aspects, right? Set, when understanding the complexity of what Set represents as an archetype, which we'll get into after I get into this material, you've now reached that aspect of the adversary. And when you're dealing with the isolated consciousness, you're dealing with an aspect of the adversary that is so unique, it can't really be compared to any other aspect. You've reached that aspect of yourself where you are now your own god or goddess or unique individual. You have attained a state where you are not anymore confounded by three-dimensional things. You're not confounded anymore by a conformist mentality way of thinking or doing things, right? It's a whole nother state of quote unquote consciousness, right? Then it goes on to say, the tunnels of Set that connect the particular clipothic realms with one another. In a similar way as the Sephiroth are connected by pathways on the tree of life. However, death is not only way to enter the realms of the clipot, right? Doorways to the night side are also found in the lowest world on the Kabbalistic tree. Malkuth / Lilith. Many Kabbalists believe that the forces of the clipot belong to this particular realm as merely an extension of Malkuth. So that's that gateway, right? That's that void when you get to the other side, right? This, because when we get past symbolically what this 11th branch represents, right? It's showing you that's that connection, that void, that space between, or that gateway that connects these two, right? Then it goes on to say, this concept, let's back up. The Lilith clipot is described as a cave, crack, or cavern in the physical world through which man can enter the dark side of the tree. This concept is also the foundation of the ritual framework presented in this book. Each initiation is personal and everyone has to face their own demons / weaknesses, inhibitions, taboos, right? We don't talk about this. Fears, fascinations, obsessions, fantasies, etc. That's doing shadow work, people. Are you working in any of those areas? Are you facing or understanding what you've described in your mind as being taboo? Have you tried to conquer and address some of your fears? What do I mean? Do you got fear of heights? Do you got fear of flying? And are they still fears, or have you tried to conquer those fears and understand them? Why is that fear there? Just to say I have a fear of something is not mastering it or conquering it. You have a fear of it, but do you understand what's the point of origin of that fear, right? I can go on, but you get the point. Obsessions and fantasies. Have you explored to the fullest extent? Hold on, I gotta get me a little more water here. Excuse me 1 second. Just want to make sure I got some water here. Give me a second. All right, sorry about that. So again, where we left off, have you really explored, all right, these areas? Because we talk about shadow work, but what is doing shadow work? I always hear people say you got to do shadow work. You got to deal with the darker aspect of yourself. But what exactly is that? Well, here's some examples here. What have you questioned yourself in your mind what you think is taboo, and have you got a thorough understanding of what that is? Have you fully explored your sexual desires and fantasies rather than just talk about them because sex or certain sexual fantasies are taboo or have been programmed in us as taboo from a very early age? Now, again, I want to put this out there because I'm not saying go out there recklessly abandon with no regard for yourself and explore sexually, because we gotta take into account there's diseases out there. So I want to make this clear. But there are ways to explore your sexual fantasies and desires in a safe and productive way. I want to make that clear. All right, because you can't just go, as a man slinging your dick everywhere because you're gonna catch something, and you can't be a female and just open your legs everywhere. You're gonna catch something. But have you explored? Because in a lot of these doctrines and cultures and religions, it's never explored or talked about thoroughly because it's always presented as something that's taboo. And certain things just aren't talked about. Not on this path, okay? This path addresses all those things. Your fascinations. Why are you fascinated with certain things, right? Why are we as men, for an example, fascinated with sports? Is it the competition thing? Is it the warrior thing? Is it the conquering thing? Is it the competitive thing? Why are we fascinated with certain things? We have to ask ourselves these questions, right? You get the point. This is how you identify areas where you need or utilize areas to do actual shadow work or working with the deep, dark, chaotic abyss of your subconscious mind, because all these things reside there. Right? They all have their point of origin there. They're all supplanted there, either by you yourself or by the many means of indoctrination, as I said last week, from the time you proceeded out your mother's womb, right? By facing and understanding them, we learn how to use them as tools of personal evolution. We transcend barriers and limitations of human nature. Our consciousness expands and we become godlike. So this is how you become a god, people. Wow, there's an answer. Right? So now I'm getting to the meat. Rather than get this mundane surface bullshit, I'm a god and a goddess, because they read some statement in a book somewhere. If it's not the conscious community crap, because the original people, ancient Egyptians, blah, 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 all fuckery. I don't hear nothing. What does it mean to you personally? Can you define it in your own terms? Can you break it down where it makes sense in general? Well, there is your answer, people. That's what it means to be a god or a goddess. It's somebody that is able to deal with these aspects, their weaknesses, their inhibitions, their fears, their taboos, their obsessions, their fantasies, and master them. But like it said here, by facing them and understanding them, we learn how to use them as tools of personal evolution. That personal evolution, that transformation, that growth and change leads to you becoming the god or the goddess that you claim to be. Okay? Look, I'm going to tell you this. I can only, speak for myself, just like everybody watching can only speak for themselves. I'm confident in the shit I do. That's all that matters to me. I can't compare that to anybody else's experience. Because like I said last week, everybody's journeys and experiences are unique because they're different. I'm not saying there's no similarities. We might have similarities with other people's experiences and journey, but it's not the same. So I can only speak for myself. I'm not worried about, whether somebody gets it or not, or what they're doing or not doing. All I know is I'm confident in my shit and what I do works for me, right? And that's the level we all need to get at. We need to find that niche through this, what it's talking about here, to make it work for us so we can become that god or that goddess. That's what I'm talking about. And don't worry about what such and such is doing, because that's the path for him or her. That's why I said I'm not concerned with what Joe Blow is doing or this one is doing. I don't give a fuck. Because I'm locked into what I'm doing, because I know what I'm doing works for me. But I also know that may not work for somebody else, and vice versa. What they're doing may not work for me, and that's okay. That's what a Luciferian mindset is about. But I know I'm confident in what it is I do. That's it. That's the point we need to get at. And what's preventing us from getting there, right? Self-doubt. What we talked about a little bit earlier, that came up a little bit prior to that. The self-doubt. Because look, let's keep it real. We might read something and go, yeah, I'm this and that. I got this. We like to big ourselves up and prop ourselves up and give us all these accolades and how we're gods and goddesses and we're dark, chaotic beings and we're this and that. But there's that little voice sometimes back in the head. I think I am. I wonder if. Don't front. We all have it. We all hear that little self-doubt voice that tries to always find its way to creep in and destroy shit. Well, that's one of the challenges you need to figure out. How the fuck can I block that voice? Right? How can I prevent that self-doubt from creeping in? Because I don't give a fuck. I've seen this happen to seasoned magicians, right? And I can attest to myself being on the path over the years where it's happened on and off. And once I got over that blockage, things start to take off. You will see. You will soar beyond what you can comprehend. Because you will find out from day one, you've been your greatest asset and you've also been your greatest enemy. Trust me. All right. So this is some good shit. You're getting some key components. See, I'm not just going to come on the show and tell you got to do your shadow work and just say mundane shit like you'll hear people just say stuff like you got to deal with your inner self or what the fuck does that mean? Be specific. Give some. This is why I think this is a great document. Well, there's many out there, but let's be specific. What in depth? How do we attack this from a very practical standpoint? Right? All right. We begin to transcend barriers and limitations of human nature. Our consciousness expands and we become godlike. A beginner to the path will find these words vague and abstract, and obviously we would prefer to know what exactly happens on each initiatory level, what we might expect and how to prepare for what will come. This is not possible. These theories are obscure, abstract, and vague because initiation is a unique experience for every practitioner, and no one will ever experience godhood in the same way as another person. That's why I say your experience is different. Don't compare it to with somebody. And that's why systems that have a set initiation for everybody doesn't work. You understand? That stays in a structure. That's why I say when we do ritualistic work, that's why we're changing. We're all over the place. There is no structure, formulated structure when we're even doing collective group rituals here. And there's a reason for that. When you have a set system or structure in a confined ideology, dogma, religion, or philosophy, it does not work. Because when there's parameters and borders for the true initiate who has it in their blood, their DNA, it's in their genetic makeup, they will outgrow it at some point, just like we all did. A lot of us, I'm not saying all of us, but most of us here in this room came from one of them systems, be it Islam, Christianity, Judaism, some Kemetic group, some Black militant Islamic group, some type of conscious group, some Buddhist. We all came from one of them established groups. It did not work for us because we outgrew it. We mastered it. And we said there's something more to this shit. This can't be it. It don't work for those people who are really gods and goddesses. It works for the stool pigeons, the cronies, the followers, and those who need to belong to a Mickey Mouse club. Those who run behind some guru or leader who claims they speak to extraterrestrials and aliens, or they receive some divine scripture, and they're going to take you to some nirvana or heavenly-like place, and then all your problems are going to be solved. Unfortunately, in 2019, there are people who still think like that. Okay? That's the problem. Okay? We got to get out of that mindset, because all those things I just mentioned create self-doubt. Because when you step outside of the established blueprint, the conformist mentality, the conformist way of thinking, right? Fear will creep in, especially in the beginning, because you've systematically been programmed from day one to do things a certain way. be it education, career, family life, morals, culture, ethnicity, religion. All these things shaped that conformist attitude or personality or mentality that we have. And when it could be a frightful thing for individuals in the beginning when they step outside of that and realize this could be a scary place, because those were the things that were masking your insecurities. When you tap into the void and darkness and connect to the gateway of this demonic realm, all that shit is gone. It's just you and your thoughts now. It's the real you. Now you're connected to the real aspect of the shadow self, where all of that chaotic way of thinking and thoughts and energy emerges. And now this is as you as the individual makes order out of it. Or, as I said earlier in the beginning, you can get consumed by it. Don't get cocky. Don't think you the motherfucking man because you say all the right things and you read all the right books and you think in your mind, you think. There's a difference between thinking and knowing. But you've convinced yourself in an illusionary aspect that you've got it all together. And I'm saying this just to those who might find themselves struggling and fail, because it's confirming that there's things you are not addressing. All right. All right. Then it goes on to say, where the fuck did I leave off? I left off. Okay. Okay, here we go. Thus, we encounter thousands of descriptions and explanations of what self-deification means, and none of them can be dismissed as false. As well, none of them can be correct, because it's personal, people. You make it what you want to be. Stop getting validation. I keep talking about this the last couple months. Trust in your intuition and your spiritual messages. Stop trying to get somebody to validate the shit you already know. Geminis do that shit a lot. Geminis ask questions. And I'm telling you this because I'm a Gemini and I used to do this growing up and coming through these different systems. Geminis will ask questions they already know the fucking answers to. This is something that they constantly do. It's because they just need to hear it again from somebody outside themselves that they're right. Trust me when I tell you that. That is a fact. I'm using that as an example. We got to stop doing that to ourselves. We got to trust in our spiritual intuition, our magical power, and our capabilities. And if you make it whatever you want it to be, and I've said this many times in videos over the last year, I love it when somebody does a ritual or a work and they'll email me or they'll call me and they say, hey, Beniti, check it out. I did this thing last night, but man, I went to my altar, and I'm listening to them. They're all enthused and they got this fire. And I'm like, wow, this is some good shit. And, and they're all amped up. And then they follow it up with a great story of results they got. I'm like, this is good. This is a person that is grasping the work. They're getting it. But then they fuck it all up when they go, do you think I did it right? Do you think I should have did something else? You think maybe I should have did this? They see subconsciously, that's what I'm talking about. There's that self-doubt. There's that second guessing. You diminish your power and your magical ability when you even put that out there. Because wasn't the fact that it went well and you got results, wasn't that enough confirmation for you? That program is deeper than a motherfucker, where we got to keep going back even after we're successful. It's like we feel like subconsciously we're not entitled to success, that we got to go back and question it again and say, I'm not what you're not worthy to get the results. You're not qualified. Why do we always do that? That's that self-doubt that we were just talking about earlier that always creeps in subconsciously. And that's why we say on this path, every time we finish ritualistic work individually or collectively, so it is done. That's why we always finished a ritual working with, so it is done, not so mote it be, right? That's fluffy shit. That's fluffy magic shit. That's gray side magic. When you say so mote it be, you're saying, oh, I put it out there, whatever may be, may be. And you're subconsciously saying there are external powers that be that can step in and destroy the flow of what you just did. So we don't say, so mote it be, all right? We say, so it is done. It stamps a stamp of finality on the work. Not so it may be done. Not so I think it's done. So I hope I did it right and it's done. No, so it is done. The adept is making a firm statement saying, fuck that, it's done right. I'm leaving it there and I'm confident that the shit I did is right. That's what you should be thinking when you're doing a ritualistic work and saying, so it is done. Anytime you say that at the end of your ritual work, that's the thought process. That's what you should be stamping it with. So don't go do a work and it's successful and you had all these great experiences from it and you got great results and then follow it up with, do you think I did it right? What kind of nonsense is that shit? Come on, people. That's that subconscious self-doubt that I was just talking about earlier, that we all think we're over. And I'm talking about this. This is not just happens to new people on the path. I see this happen regularly with so-called people that got experience on the path. So when I just talk, this don't just apply to newbies. I've seen seasoned vets struggle with this, so-called. All right. But let's continue. And the journey continues. Let me stop. All right. Then it's getting better, baby. Getting better. Oh, shit. I went back. What the fuck did I do? Okay, here we go. Okay, then it goes on to say, eat. Oh, no. Whatever stage of personal development we have achieved so far, there's still more to learn. And although we view ourselves as gods in potential, we do not know what awaits us on the initiatory levels that we have not reached yet. So that's why I've always said over the years, you've heard me say in a lot of videos over the years, and even before I was even on YouTube, going back to the late 80s, early 90s, there's something I used to always say in classes I did, going way back to them days. We're striving to become gods or goddesses, and that's what this is saying in here. We have the potential. If we were at that divine state, we wouldn't even be having these conversations right now. We wouldn't even be studying, reading. We're always seeking knowledge because we're trying to perfect ourselves, right? We're trying to make ourselves better. And I always used to say that years ago, we're striving to become gods and goddesses, right? That's what the path is about. That's what the journey is about. That's what the work is about. That's why you do the work, right? So when we make the statement, yes, by nature, it is our divine right. We are gods and goddesses, but we have to do the work to obtain that level, people. Yeah, you can walk around saying it all you want, but are you a living example of it? By your lifestyle, the example you set, the way you raise your family, by the success that you have in life, and more importantly, by how you deal with the failures in your life. Let's talk about that for a quick minute, because your success is not what really sharpens your skill. Your failures and how you deal with them and conquer them and master them, that's what sharpens your tool to become this god or goddess, right? When we were talking about that earlier. See, that's not what impresses me. I'm always impressed by the motherfucker personally because I've come from similar situations like that, and I'm sure we all have, from some tough situations in life. Some terrible shit, was thrown our way. And I'm not talking from no spooky mystical force. Situations I'm talking about, be it personal, family, money, career, dealing with shady motherfuckers. I'm sure we all be on here all night to the wee hours of the morning talking about stories of how we've been done wrong, fucked over, and been put in fucked up situations. Except when I realized I put myself in that situation. You open yourself up and allow certain individuals in your space. Nobody forced you to, right? But I'm impressed by the motherfuckers who are able to overcome that adversity, right? Listen to the word, overcome that adversity. Adversity. So what greater archetype would be the best to tap into to overcome adversity? Adversity has root in what word, people? The adversary, right? You need the power in the mind, mindset, right? S-E-T, of the adversary, set, the adversary. Whether you call him Set, Satan, Samael, Azazel, The only way you're going to come adversity, people, is to tap into the power of the adversary, because there's no greater force or energy that can overcome adversity. No timid, turn your other cheek, peace, love, and biblical God. That's going to get you stomped and crushed. That's a weak, pathetic God. We don't turn our other cheek on this path. See, I ain't trying to look. I ain't trying to bump into nobody. I'm trying to crush heads and step on toes. You understand? See, the biblical God tells you to be docile and turn the other cheek, but then it's a warring God. If you disobey, he commands wars and bloodshed, killing and violence and animal slaughter and sacrifice and children and captivity and slavery. This is the biblical God, people. This is the same God they tell you later in the New Testament says turn the other cheek. Fuck that. Somebody's playing games. And now you want to know why our mindset is all fucked up. Because all this shit, look. If you look at religion as an example, the Bible and the Quran, the very things it tells you to stay away from, when I say it, the God of the Bible and the Quran tells you don't kill, don't steal, don't murder, don't harm innocent people, don't practice incest, don't kill, don't covet your neighbor's wife, don't rob. And then turns around, he's guilty of doing the same things. But when it's okay to go into war, he says it's okay to steal booty and loot and capture people and put them in slavery when he gives the command. But you don't have the authority to make that decision for yourself. What kind of fuckery is that, people? That's some serious fuckery. Okay? Let's go on. All right. We're going to finish with, let me see if I can get into some of this. Yeah, I think we should. All right, we're going to go to, well, we got a couple more pages. I'm going to finish these last couple. All right. All right. The self-deification of one person, and we're just talking about this. The self-deification of one person is never the same for another. Now, when we talk about self-deification, let's make this clear. When we say self-deification, deity, God or goddess, don't compare that to a monotheistic God, because that's not a reality. That's not what we mean when we say that. So when you hear this term self-deification or becoming a deity, a god or a goddess, right? We're not talking about some spooky mythological religious God that's a fairy tale. We're talking simply in the sense of an individual who takes the initiative to be in control of their own destiny. That's what it means, people, that you have taken the initiative and have made the choice that you're not going to let nobody dictate to you what your path is, that you're going to lay it out for yourself. That's why I said earlier, what is one of the definitions of being a god or a goddess is taking responsibility. Taking responsibility, what? For your own actions, for your successes, your failures, right? We were just talking about that earlier. So you'll hear this term self-deification, right? Which ties into the word deity. So we got to get out of our mind, because I remember when we were doing the Luciferian video, I remember we had some kooky ass Christian that came in the room and, went on a tangent about that, because the Christian, the Muslim, or the Jew doesn't have the same concept of God that we have. It's different. Their concept of God is some fictitious, spooky spirit that resides in some fictitious place called heaven. And we don't even believe in that bullshit ass fairy tale of some devil in some false place called hell. That's all fairy tales and myths. Okay. It's not a reality, people. All right. So let's continue. What goes on? Self-deification of one person is never the same for another. There are certain shared concepts on the initiatory path of the night side that help organize the practice with the clipothic tree according to a working pattern, but they all carry a different meaning for each practitioner, right? For instance, Gamaliel will confront us with our sexuality. Now, understand, when you open, we're going to go through some of them real quick. That's the last section. When you tap into some of these energies, it brings the awareness. They're all connected to certain aspects of your nature, right? When it was talking about earlier, the adversities, the challenges via the obsessions, the fantasies, the taboos, and all those things, you must face them, right? So we see here Gamaliel is symbolic of confronting us with our sexuality, but the sexual issues of one practitioner will not be the same for another person employed in this work. Samael will bring forth issues of doubt and insanity, but this will mean something completely different for each practitioner. You keep seeing the theme here. There's not one particular mythology that's going to apply to everybody the same way. That's, again, why religion don't work, because it just doesn't speak to everybody on a wide scale level, right? Then it goes on to say, in the same way, the experience of Daumiel, which is the highest initiatory level on the tree, is unique for each adept. Gods and entities who teach the gnosis of the draconian current set up unique testing challenges for everyone. Depending on our personal inhibitions and limitations, and we may have glimpses of our personal godhood on various stages of the path. But the true meaning of self-deification is a mystery that can only be solved by experience. What's that old saying? Experience is the best teacher. That's why I say you can read all the books. You can have all the opinions, right? Opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one, right? You can read all of the, that's great. And book knowledge serves a purpose, but it's not the tell-all. It's not going to give you the full understanding until you indulge in those experiences via your work. And everybody's not going to have the same experience. That's why it's making it clear it can only be solved by experience. You heard me say something over the last couple months. There comes a point on this path where sometimes you have to get the answers for yourself. Not everybody can give you the answers. Not every book is going to have the answers. Not every teacher, not me or anybody else, is going to be able to give you all the answers to everything. You will be able to do that by way of your experiences. And sometimes you got to figure this shit out on your own. That's just a reality. All right? In present times, there are several initiatory models existing within Qliphothic magic. They are practiced by particular occult groups, and they can also be learned by the practitioner alone, forming foundation for one's personal development. The Tree of Qliphoth is one of these initiatory models. This book, however, does not provide complete instructions for self-initiation in the Qliphothic path, and these meditations should not be taken for such. It is not a complete initiatory model based on the Tree of Qliphoth. Now, there are some Qliphothic meditations in the document after this, which I'm not going to go into. You can go into that on your own. I'm just going to finish with these last couple of pages. The purpose of this book is to provide information and rituals that will serve as an introduction to a particular level of tree and their role in personal ascent on the draconian path, or this path, the serpentine path. All this deals with working with the Kundalini and raising it, right? And as I said last week, not all of it is pleasant. All right? Get that out of your head. It's not. Descriptions and meditations provided here will introduce you into each Qliphoth and make you familiar with techniques that can be used to explore it, right? I'm going to skip some of this and get into now the breakdown, all right? So here's some of the breakdown. Below you will find a brief. I'm just going to go through real quick. There's short, the 11 aspects of the tree, and then we're done. There's short explanations for them. And then you can explore these on your own. Then we'll take some questions and we'll go to the phones and all that fun shit. All right. Below you will find a brief overview on the 11 levels of the Qliphothic path that are explored in the book. They include the 10 Qliphothic spears from Lilith to Daumiel, with the addition of Dath/the abyss that exists on both sides of the Kabbalistic tree, and is an essential part of Qliphothic initiatory process. More detailed descriptions and methods of work with these spears are provided in the further chapters of this volume. Lilith, Queen of the Night. The opening of the gates to the Sitra Akra on the other side. We talked about that earlier. Samael facilitates the energy. Lilith guides you through the different levels, right? Remember, it told you she creates the hunger, the thirst, and the passion for the knowledge and the wisdom, right? So Lilith is way much more than just sexual lust and desire, even though she possesses those feminine qualities. But as I mentioned before, like with Kali and a lot of the other female goddesses on this path, the sexual aspect is only exploited. Lilith is so much more than that. She represents the divine female in the sense of a higher state of consciousness, knowledge, and wisdom. Because the female or the feminine energy is the guide through the different levels of this path. Not the male, people. Not the male. Here, the initiate encounters the first guides and allies on the path. Consciousness opens for the contact with the forces of the night side. Lucifer's flame is ignited, and Lilith approaches to guide the initiate through the pathways of the Klippa. The ruling demon goddess of the Klippa is Nama, the lady of the gate. We only heard about Nama, lady of the gate. She is the sister of Lilith. This sounds like Aset and Nephthys when you read the story of the Duat and the 12 gates of the underworld. No different, people. Go back and read that story. She is the sister of Lilith, both sisters, the seductress of souls and queen of all worldly riches and treasures. So Lilith embodies the harmony between the objective and the subjective, because you can obtain, and she represents in connection with those areas of success on a materialistic level, but she's so much more deeper than that when you understand the spiritual powers on the subjective, right? Then it talks about Gamaliel, the obscene one, the astral sphere of dreams and nightmares. Here, the initiate explores mysteries of witchcraft and sexual alchemy. The goddess of the moon is encountered, and she introduces the practitioner into the secrets of lunar magic. This deals with a lot of your vampirism and lycanthropy, right? The spear is ruled by Lilith in her aspect of the harlot, or of Ishep, Zenuman, who holds the unholy grail of immortality. She is the queen of all succubi and incubi that visit sleeping men and women in a dreaming state, inciting desires and leading the righteous to fornication, right? We all hear people talk about the succubi and the incubi, right? Got to explore that. It's more to it. It's not always a negative thing. Samael, I'm going to go through these quick. The poison of God really means poison those of El. El is a short abbreviation for Elo, which is source, and then Elohim is the plural for a group of beings. So it's really poison those of El. Here, the alchemical poison is drunk and begins to work its way through the initiate's consciousness. The contact with the personal shadow is made, and it becomes the reaper, teaching the initiate the mysteries of death and soul flight. The ruling demon god of the Klippa is Adramelech, who confronts the initiate with tests of insanity, doubt, and disbelief. So now you can see, when we were talking about earlier, why it can turn your world upside down. Look what energy that you are unlocking. So now you have to ask yourself via your study, are you prepared to be able, when it comes, to be able to conquer it? Because it's going to come. It's not a matter of if, it's not a matter of when, it will come. Trust that, believe that. Then we have Arab Zadok, the raven of dispersion. The mysteries of Venus and the beginning on the path of the warrior. The initiate enters here the path of sexual mysticism, represented by the dark Venus, and faces the ordeals of the warrior through the path of Baal, the god of war. The spear is also ruled by Tubal-Cain, the maker of sharp weapons, representing the fierce character of the Klippa, the brother of Nama, and the first alchemist. Now, if you're a Mason and you travel, Tubal-Cain is something you learn in depth about on the 3rd degree, the Master Mason degree, right? You're told, which is bullshit, but you're told that in the beginning of the degree that the password of a Master Mason is Tubal-Cain, and it's not. It's the deceptive word. Then you're given what you think is illusionary, because I'm showing this to show you what this is talking about. Then you're given later in that same degree, and I'm telling you this because I've gone through a lodge, you're told it's Mahabon, right? And that's not the word of a Master Mason either. You don't get the true word of the Master Mason until you decide to go the Scottish or the York Rite degrees and continue, quote unquote, your Masonic journey. A lot of brothers will stop after the Blue House thinking they got the word of a master mason, and they don't. Because I know you got Maha Bone, you can't bullshit me. And I know you were falsely given before that Tubal Cain. It's all illusionary, okay? You will find out Tubal Cain, as it says here, represents, okay, one of the, as it uses the term here, the fierce character, the brother of Nama and the first alchemist, right? Was a master sorcerer, was able to utilize all of the elementals, right? If you ever seen a mason, if you ever seen like next to a Masonic decal in a car and you see that thing that looks like a hockey stick with two balls on it, that represents Tubal Cain. If you've ever seen that on a car and you didn't know what the fuck it was, I'm telling you what it is now. You'll see some guys that are masons, they'll have the Masonic emblem on their car. They might have a 32nd degree, or they might have a York Rider Scott. Sometimes you will see that one emblem. It looks like a hockey stick, and it has two little balls on each side of it. That is a person telling you they have obtained, well, they think they have, I should say, the knowledge and wisdom of Tubal Cain. Okay? That's what that means. And it's funny how they tie that into the realm of Arab Zadok, right? Then you have Dagrion, the disputer, the illumination of the night side with the light of the black sun. Through the communion with Sorat, the Antichrist, the initiate experiences the union of God and beast and learns the idea of godhood. This is where the initiate is confronted with all the indoctrination and the illusionary bullshit they were taught. And now they're getting the cold, hard truth and facts about themselves. And this is where two worlds collide. And this is where you will find out if you really have the power and the ability to make order out of your chaos. This is when you tap in and you realize everything up until this point has been a lie and it's been a fucking illusion. You realize everything that you've been indoctrinated with, programmed. And the painful part is a lot of the things you stood for many years that you thought were correct are questioned and challenged when you tap into this level right here. That's why I was saying earlier, be careful when you think you have made order out of your chaos. A lot of people think they have because they've read a few books, they grasp a few concepts, and then they throw a nice couple little catchphrases out there. And it sounds heavy and it sounds deep. But this is when you know, when you tap into this shit here, can you be real with yourself and admit that you might have got some of the shit wrong? And that's a tough thing for people to do. Just because you've been doing something for so long doesn't mean it's right. Say that again. Just because you've been doing something for so long, that don't make it right, people. And I've had to learn that lesson the hard way for many years when first stumbling across this path, right? It's the same thing I'll run into people who have been loyal to a certain spiritual system, dogma, or philosophy. They've gotten comfortable and complacent, and they think because they've been so loyal to it for so many years that it can't be wrong, or I can't step outside of this. That's one of the biggest disservices you could do to yourself, right? All right, so let's finish this. The ruined demon god of the Cliffa is Belphegor, the Lord of the Dead, who confronts the initiate with ordeals of loneliness and despair. When one starts tapping in to what we call, that's connected to the adversary of Set, the isolated consciousness, it can become very lonely in the beginning and through periods without, because the loneliness and despair kicks in because of what I just said. You realize now you're seeing things for what they really are, not for what you've been told to see them as or what you thought they were. It can be a whole cold, harsh reality to start seeing things for what they really are without you trying to put your personal philosophical interpretation on it, right? That could be a painful thing, especially for a religious person when their whole concept of God is challenged, right? They get personal, they get offended, they get hot in the collar. How dare blasphemy? Well, first of all, that's all fictitious and mythological. I don't believe in your religious God and your concept of blasphemy. So don't get offended. If your God is real and his substance is real, you'd be able to handle that a different way. But it's to show you that you're the one that's giving life and power to that God. Because if you stop giving life and power to it, it doesn't exist. Trust me when I tell you that. You'll figure that out one way or the other. Almost there. A couple more. Then we got Golakab, the burning one, Now remember, this is all symbolic, people. Remember, as we talked about last week, that we're not talking literal, right? The tree is used as a concept to bridge these two realms that we call the objective and the subjective. These archetypes are used to unlock and activate these portions of the psyche of your mind. Let's make sure you'd be wasting your time to literally debate this, because it's not being presented, and we made that clear last week, and the author of this document made that clear. We're not using this in a literal fashion. We're using this in what it represents to the psyche as archetypes, right? All right. Golokab, the burning one, the apocalypse, and the crowning of the path of the warrior, right? The initiate becomes the force of destruction and rises as a phoenix from the lake of fire. Through harsh ordeals of Asmodeus, the fiery lord of lust, the initiate learns the ways of pleasure and suffering. Asmodeus is also called Samael, the black, and associated with the fierce aspect of Samael, or Lucifer, the one who rules in strength. This is a ferocious aspect of the adversary. This is a raw, powerful aggressor. When it literally says here, pleasure and suffering, look, man, I can't even put this into words. It's one who has really, mastered the aspect of indulging in things to explore and experience and master, but knows with that is going to come some of that level of suffering that it's talking about, right? Then we have Ga'ag Shebla, the smiter. The initiate becomes the smiter and destroys the substance of creation, which lies at the foundation of the universe. What this is talking about shuns all the old bullshit ways and systems of dogma and indoctrination, right? Which lies at the foundation of the universe. What has been created has to be destroyed. Well, in order to create something, something has to be destroyed. That's just basic common fucking sense. To create or build a house, trees have to be crushed. Glass has to be crushed, right? First of all, that's when we utilize the system in this path of deconstruction and reconstruction, it's the same process. We are destroying and clearing those things and ways about ourselves to make way for new and more productive ways. So in order to create those new ways, we must destroy those ways about ourselves that are holding us back. So it's the common sense principle. In order for something to be created, something must be destroyed. Okay. The ruling demon god of the Qliphoth is Astaroth, the foul angel of the Qliphoth, identified with the goddess Astarte or / Ishtar. Dath, the vision of the abyss, in the encounter with Chronozon, the guardian of the gate. Satriel, the concealed, the opening of the eye of Lucifer, and the mysteries of the dark feminine. And I don't hear enough of people talking about this, especially as females working with the dark, demonic feminine energy. That would be one part of the tree. Satriel, the concealer, because it awakens the eye of Lucifer or opens it, and it puts the initiate into the mysteries of the dark feminine. Something that, in my opinion, is not talked about enough. In the black labyrinths of Lucifuge, the shadow brother of Lucifer, even Lucifer has a shadow aspect, heavy shit. The initiate faced tests of surrealism and absurdity and learns to find the truth in what is concealed. In the womb of the dark mother, the secrets of fate are revealed, and the spider goddess arises from the void to teach the initiate how to shape one's destiny. Then Lilith can manifest when you understand the dark feminine and what it represents. Because once Lilith manifests, it now will show the initiate, as mentioned earlier, and guide them through the different levels. Because that manifestation, that eye opening of Lucifer or Samael, because remember, they both facilitate the energy on this Qliphoth, right? It's important to understand. All right, we got two more. Gagiel, the Hinderer, the throne of the dark god. The initiate breaks down the divine lore and prepares for entering the throne of Lucifer. This spear is ruled by Beelzebub, the Lord of the Flies, and Adam, Belial, the wicked man. The Clipper represents the masculine phallic forces that provide energy for creation or recreation of the universe by the force of the initiate's will. All right. And the last one, the notorious one, Tamuel, the twin god, the vision of the throne of Lucifer, and the two-faced demon god of the Clipper, Satan and Moloch, representing duality as opposed to unity. The mystery of Lucifer's flame is revealed, and the initiate opens the path into the void. Okay? That's the quick breakdown of those 11 paths on the clip pot. I would suggest you research them more as you go through the book. And I'll probably focus next week we'll see. But there's some meditations you can do with Lilith, Samael, and some of the aforementioned demonic beings that represent each one of those trees. All right. So that's pretty much the prepared shit I had for you. Or, well, I don't want to say prepared, just kind of shit I wanted to breeze through. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with some questions in the chat. Yeah, I've got like, see, I understand my addiction to sports. I'm watching 2 hockey games, a basketball game simultaneously. I'm watching my Yankees. Well, they won already. I'm watching my Yankees and I'm doing a class at the same time. It's multitasking, people. But I'm a sports head. I know a lot of you may not be into hockey, but hockey is an exciting fucking game. And I love when the playoffs come. I want to hear nothing. It's a white sport. Get your ass out there and play it. Just like I hear people crack on baseball. I've watched people come out there that say baseball's boring and they look like fools trying to go out there and play it. It's not an easy sport, people. Anyway, I don't want to get into sports because, I can get diverted. All right, I'm going to go start at the top of the chat. I'll try to take some questions there. And if you want to shortly come in live, you can say you want to come in. I'll send a link to your email. Or you can call in shortly. But let me go through some of these little stuff in the chat, see what we got here, and then we'll go from there. All right, get closer. I'm getting too comfortable here. All right, I'm going to skip the greetings and all that. Peace and greetings to everybody. If I didn't greet you when you first came in. Again, I appreciate everybody tuning in. I appreciate everybody supporting the channel. If I don't say it enough, I do. I appreciate everybody supporting. And again, that's something, that I probably should have did a while back, but though she probably won't take credit for it. That was kind of Raven's idea to do the Instagram and the Facebook stuff. Probably wish I would have did it earlier because we're, definitely getting people from that area. So, I want to acknowledge all the people that support all the platforms. If I don't say it enough, appreciate it. For all the people that have been taking the classes over the last year, I most definitely appreciate it. I've developed personal relationships with some of you because I've done personal work with you. Some of you is through consultations and spiritual work. So it's just where, again, I want to put that gratitude and thanks out there. All right. Let's see what we got. Brother Jack J. Jizzle, still on the road. Hopefully you'll be back here soon, brother. We got to link up. Yeah, Maeve, I know earlier you were talking about Raven's products. Most definitely. And like I said, she's working on some stuff and you guys are going to see the finished product soon. But I'll let her when that time comes. But as I said earlier, there's a lot of us in here that do things, have talents. I know, like Brother Duma, I said earlier, he makes jewelry. I know Sister Beth and Margaret does. We have plenty of people in here. We should, get to know those people, get aware. So if some of us have service and goods that we need, let's link up, let's people support each other. All right, so what else we have? All right. Yeah, early in the background, that was my little guy and my wife and my little guy making a little noise. All right, I'm looking for some questions. They're kind of just skipping some of for the sake of time. I'm not going to read. All right, so here we go. Be like water. How do you deal with lust for results? That's a good question. A lot of times I do spells and feel they do not work fast enough and then become disappointed only to find out soon the results occur most of the times, right? So first I want to be clear and make sure lust, most times people will hear that and they think it automatically connects to sex. That would be, on the surface, but you can lust after power, you can lust after money, you can lust for food. So I'm not sure if you're talking about a sexual lust here, but lust in general, if we work with the concept of lust, remember, it always deals with the principles of indulgence, because part of this path is we call it the path of indulgence. Indulge to the point where those desires are fed, but they don't consume you, right? But you say something here that you'll do spells and feel they do not work fast enough, and then you become disappointed, but then you soon find out the results occur. So now you need to identify there's an aspect you might want to work on called patience. And there's ritualistic work. And we're always told in a lot of the mystic systems that patience is the hardest school to master. And really, in essence, what you're saying, you may not think so, and others, it ties into that realm of self-doubt that we talked. Because like you said, when it doesn't come fast enough, we start doubting the work we did. So I would just suggest you just try to work on exercising discipline and patience. Because like you say, if the results are coming, the power is there, the intent is there, the work is there. But understanding that harmony that you need, one, between, again, feeding those desires, but not being consumed for them. So you make sure you create that fine line. Because if you don't have that fine line or those parameters that you created for yourself, because only you know them, then you'll be fine. But that would be my results. Work on that discipline and patience, because the answer's in your question in a sense, because you're getting the results. It's just I think you struggle waiting for them, and sometimes that's a hard thing because, and I always tell people, not everything on this path comes lit quick. It takes work sometimes and consistency. So I think you're right there. Just work on the discipline and the patience. What else we got? And that's funny. Like you say, I see you comment later down, and you feel like you're sometimes you get results a month later, because sometimes we don't understand the power and the effects or the lasting effects that the work has. And that's why I said, look, I always tell people when we do ritualistic work here, right? I always say this, okay? I always say this. And I'll get an email months later that people will still be getting beneficial effects from work we did months ago. You understand? And that is a very common thing. And as you're describing, you might do something and get results months later. That's the norm. And sometimes if you're not getting results quick enough, it's also a telltale sign you need to do more work and stay on top of it. Okay? That's just the way this path is. And when it changes, You understand it. You'll figure out why. You'll start to understand when it starts to come quicker sometimes. And you understand sometimes why it goes slower, because you might have to do more work in that area, but it's very common. Okay, I'm looking for questions, just skipping through some of the comments for the time so I can go to phones and stuff. So we got. No, I mean, well, this is a comment worth reading from Moni. Save yourself, right? It took me a minute to learn that now. People call me selfish. It's not, because you're no good to anybody else if you're no good to yourself. And that's another illusion that a lot of dogmas teach. Save the whole fucking world. Help and save everybody. Well, before you can do that, and there's nothing wrong with helping. I don't know about the save thing, because really individuals got to want, that's a whole nother story. But you can't help nobody if you can't help yourself. That's just basic common sense. So one of the first principles on this path, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is you must get yourself in order first before you can be of any use to anybody else. And that's one of the main differences of this path and any other path, because all those other paths are always, it's, as I mentioned many times before, it's always teaching you to come from without, within. It's external journey outward in, whereas this path is reverse. It's an inward journey outward, totally different in the approach, and totally different results, and totally different experiences. So anyway. Oh, only your birthday. Okay. Happy 50th. Oh shit. Hit the 5-0. What you hitting? You hitting the strip club? Where you going? Oh shit. Only hit the big 5-0. What else we got? Birthday Saturday. That's all right. We're only a couple of days away. We ain't gonna see you Saturday. All right. Let's see what else we got here. And good comment by Set Typhoon Legion, who, by the way, if I didn't mention earlier, that's the intro music that I play for the show, as you all know. And that's the brother right in there. Now that you see him in the room, Set Typhoon Legion. So if you're interested in his music, get at him. He is on Instagram too. You'll see him. He's on my page, and I'm sure you can connect to his page. And hopefully any other new music you get, brother, pass it this way. I'd be more happy to put it out there. But I kind of used his song, My Name is Maine, which the artist name is also Maine, kind of as the intro theme music, as I do it on a regular basis. So, excuse me, shout out to the brother. And hope you listen to the words of it, because the words in that intro music speak volumes. So make sure you're listening to that when it's actually being played. There is an esoterical and metaphysical aspect of the Bible. Now, the problem is religious people deal with the exoteric aspect of the Bible, the literal. They're more caught up in the physical things of the Bible, or the literal things, not the hidden meanings, not the esoterical or the metaphysical breakdowns. Everything is literal. But here's the fucked up part about it. They'll pick and choose. They'll try to pick what areas it's not literal, it's symbolic or spiritual, and it's usually portions that they can't explain, and then they love to enforce and pick and choose and shove down your throat where it's literal. See, that's nonsense. We on this path study and master the Bible because we know there's an esoterical science to it. Okay, and I've said that many times before. And good comment by Oni. I was just talking about this in class on Saturday. Astrology can become very religious. Now, there's, people will say, when I'm working magic, I like to use the planetary movements, the phases of the moon, and that's great. I'm not saying it can't help you tap into higher levels of energy in your psyche. Great. But I've always also followed that up with any great adept or magician can work the power of their magic any place, any time. Don't let that confine you, because subconsciously what you can do is, whether you're not aware of it or not, you can limit your power. Now, if it creates a discipline in you where you plan your rituals around the planetary movements and it enhances your abilities and your powers, great. But I wouldn't look at it as the tell-all, because what happens is once you make it like a mandatory thing that you can only do things at certain times, then it becomes a form of religion. You get stuck in a certain methodology or way of thinking that can limit you. So I'm saying you do what you need. Anybody that has that way of thinking, that's fine, but don't let it be the tell-all as far as gauging the level of success or non-level of success you have in your magic, because whether you succeed or fail, it still boils down to you. You're the one that's responsible. It ain't got nothing to do with if your magic fails. If you're doing candle magic, you didn't get the results. It's not because you did it out of due season. It's not because you did it because it wasn't the right signs. It's just your intent and your power wasn't there. Let's not get that confused. Yeah, astrologers will say that no magic when the moon is void. Well, when you're dealing, and that's dealing with lunar forces, right? Luna deals with the moon. You understand? And again, I don't really know what factual information you can really utilize to explain that, or not explain it, validate it. I just think that's very religious in nature. Yeah, good comment by Stuff Dog. Any and everything you hide from other people, fears and lusts, all shadow shit. And it's gonna come to the surface, okay? That's the thing. Look, you can bullshit everybody else, right? You hear this term all the time. There's one person you can't bullshit, and that's yourself. Okay, so you could put up a good front and try to portray yourself, right? We talk about the real trinity of self. Right? You can portray yourself as hard as you want people to see you as. You can portray yourself to who you think you are, but the reality is you are who you really are, and that's going to come to the surface one way or the other. So if it's better to take the initiative and deal with your bullshit, because all of that stuff, like you just described, Stuff Dog, what that does is creates more. That persistence. That resistance creates much more of that persistence. It's going to come to the surface. Blair Jones. Hey, Blair. Glad you're learning. You like water. When I was flying up to Michigan this week, there was a lot of turbulence due to the storms from Canada to Mexico. Yeah, I heard it's real fucked up weather up there. But I was reading the book of 5 Rings by Musashi. That shit got me through fear. Yeah, that'll help you. It's a good concept to conquer fears, but it's crazy how you were reading that on that, dealing with that. Yeah, man, death on a plane. Some people I used that earlier, the example. Some people have fear of flying. I still have fear of deep water. And I gotta admit it, but here's some strange, bizarre thing. If I'm like out in the middle of nowhere on water on a ship, I feel this strange, eerie urge to want to jump in, knowing I can't swim. So I'm in the process, I'm exploring, how can I be so afraid of deep water? Because I know part of the fear is because I can't swim, never learned to swim. And part of the way of overcoming that fear, even at this late age or stage in my life, is actually learning how to swim. But what's this strange obsession with wanting to jump into that deep, dark, watery abyss? And I find I get in a trance if I'm out in the middle of nowhere. on the water. That's what I was talking about earlier. Explore. That would be a taboo. Why would you want to do that knowing you can drown or die? Think about that shit for a minute, people. Right? Some people are fascinated with these fears that connects them with death. Because if you explore it deeper, and I'm gonna look, let me make this clear. I'm not saying be fucking evil Knievel and become a stunt daredevil or nothing like that, because that's just like voluntarily putting your life at risk. There's ways to explore fear in a productive way. Now, shit, don't get me wrong, anything can happen at any given time, but I'm saying don't inadvertently put yourself out there. So I'm not encouraging anybody to start doing ridiculous shit, but I am saying start and intensely from a mental perspective, start to explore those fears. And I've done that. I'm using the example with water. Snakes. Some people have severe fear of snakes. Why? Because that you're going to see that you were programmed with that. Yeah, I'm not talking about the surface shit. Yeah, we know snakes, if they're poisonous, they could be dead. Of course, that's the surface fear. But in essence, there's something that lies deeper than that. I mean, we could go on with the list of fears. It could be animals, it could be places, things, events. But there's a root to that fear. All right, what else we got? Hold on, let me scroll up. Caden Patterson, yes. Earlier we were talking, you should explore your sexual desires because sexual suppression can lead to many other complications. And I've talked about this. I've done some videos on this in the past. Most people are in miserable relationships because there's a lack of communication. Most of us, and I've done videos on this in the past, most of us don't communicate our likes and dislikes to our partner because we might have fears that we might be ostracized for something. Then you might find out that your partner might have similar or the same type of desires, but you don't really know that because you never communicated that. And I always used to joke around. You've heard me say in past videos, if you like to dip your toes in hot fudge or chocolate milk and have somebody suck it off, that's a fantasy or a sexual desire. Explore that shit. And you won't know your significant other or others like it if you don't ask. Now, look, are there going to be things that one wants to explore and one doesn't? Yes, but you're only going to know that via communication. Part of the problem is we don't openly communicate those desires, but you should explore them, whether it's, via yourself through visualization or carry them out. But again, as I said earlier, make sure I'm not, encouraging anyone to sling their stuff freely everywhere because there's diseases out there. Let's use common sense. I'm not telling every female to lay down and open their legs and indulge in all their carnal desires. And I'm not telling every dude to sling his dick everywhere. So I say that within reason and common sense, but there are ways you can explore it. And as I said, sex magic goes way deeper than just, the lustful aspects of it. It's about, utilizing the sexual energy via the orgasm, but also doing it solo is one thing, but doing it with another individual is a whole nother ballgame. It's got to be the right fit. It's got to be like mind. It's got to be like similar energies. You're exchanging certain bodily fluids. You're both ingesting DNA of the individual. And in that DNA is a certain level of consciousness and intelligence that you're also opening yourself up to. So you must do your research. It's not something you just go randomly doing. You can't do it with some dumbass motherfucker and you're on one level, you're here and they're here. That's not going to work. That's going to open yourself up for all fuckery and nonsense. And there should be a clear intent. What is the intent? Because the passion, the lust, and the energy from it is what can be utilized to fuel and make the ritual successful. Right? We talked about last week in this book here, it talked about the raising via the man up through the chakras from the pit of the belly, from the very root chakra all the way up, how it comes and raises itself up through the crown chakra, where it meshes and meets, and then it's sent back down, right? That moment where the discipline in the ritual, if you're doing it with somebody else's, and it's not easy, when both are supposed to try to orgasm at the same time. So when that is rising, and it's same process for a female, but it's more internal. And when that meets and meshes is where the intent is put out there. That's where the discipline comes in. That's where the lustful, passionate aspect of it has to be separated from the ritualistic and the spiritual aspect. And that takes discipline, people. Look, you can read all the books that you want, but you better grasp the concept of it, because if you don't understand that concept and how to apply it, then it just becomes pointless, becomes useless. So it can be used as a very powerful tool if used within reason and discipline. I want to make that clear. But it should be explored, no doubt. All right. A good comment by Stuff Dog. Sports is a means of learning how to build yourself in the physical. And if you have the mind, you can see how to transfer this to the mind. Where can I attack this shit? I attack the field. And that's why sports is a very powerful tool, because it can bring out, and I think you hit it on the head, Stuff Dog, and I know you're a former athlete. So, but I think that's what connects with a lot of male, and not just male, there's females who have that same passion for sports. I think that you nailed it on the head. It can bring out the divine, or the powerful potential in an individual. It can unite people. It can be a healing tool. To me, it's funny how it seems when you're engulfed in sports, whether playing it or going live, it's like you're in your own universe. It's like you're in a different world, a different realm, and it's a different energy. And I think this, just again, I can only explain from my experience, and I'm kind of piggybacking and going further off of what you said. I think it's a powerful tool, and I know that's why I have a connection and love, to be engulfed in sports. That's a good statement. And good comment by Akpan Faku. You can't get all your information from one source, right? And I've always encouraged people. I even use, like Richard K. Page has in his books. Like he says, don't use my books as the tell all for Luciferianism. He encourages you to explore it, study, and read, and compare. Anybody, that's why I was talking about all those Mickey Mouse clubs and groups. Anybody that tells you, and that's the problem. When you belong to a lot of those groups and clubs, you can't really deviate outside of that. And if you do, then you're ostracized. Anybody that tells you what you can and cannot do, stay away from them. Okay? Because they're not going to be productive for your growth. They're actually going to be destructive for your growth. All right. So yeah, you should always explore, be open. You should always do your research. You should always gather as much information as you can. That's how you stay sharp, and that's how you grow. All right. Yeah, the self-doubt voice will always be there, off and on. I don't care how. Look, you can say something on the surface, but subconsciously, it will try to find little cracks to work its way in. So be conscious of it. Most definitely. All right, what else we got? Again, I'm kind of just looking for questions for the sake of time. I'm going to open the phones soon. Well, I know you typed this in later, but I think we kind of, if you, I think you on, the best way to confront your shadow self is all those things that we were talking about. Deal with your obsessions, your desires, your taboos, your fears. All of those things are doing that real shadow self. And when I say deal with them, not just say it, but get to the root of what creates, those feelings or emotions that make you feel that way. That will be the stepping stone and the guide to how to explore them. Because one thing to just say it like, I fear, like we were using the fear thing earlier, fear of heights. Well, the only way to explore that is to set up an exercise where you could safely explore that. Go to the top of a tall skyscraper that it's secure, but you can still be a part of conquering that fear of heights and explore it and engulf yourself in the moment and see what comes to the surface and what root is creating those fears. So that's the in-depth way to do it. And I'm using the fear thing as an example. That would be the way you would want to approach it rather than just saying it and not really doing anything about it. So all those things we were talking about earlier, your obsessions, your taboos, your fantasies, all those things, that's the shadow work, because those are the parts of yourself you're taught about in other dogmas that you need to suppress. Don't deal with that. Suppress it. Block it out. It's just not a reality. This path is completely different. It's telling you to deal with it. All right, so Vlad Jones says, so do you tap into true self and all aspects of that? And all aspects of that to concur the shadow work? Yeah, because it connects. So yes, it is part of the process, most definitely. Change definitely doesn't happen overnight. Yeah, and Trident 72 put in the link to the document. If you have Scribe, there's the link. You could pull it up free. It's only like 30 something pages or 40 pages, but some good stuff in there. And if you want to explore some further, the meditations, there's some ritualistic work in there with Lilith and some of those demons mentioned on the tree. But again, I would make sure you thoroughly educate yourself and prepare yourself to open yourself to those energies because of a lot of the things that we were talking about at the very beginning of the show. Okay. Okay, don't understand this question because it sounds more from a personal perspective. Your spirit is real. Again, I would have to ask you, what is your definition of spirit? Because you said your spirit is real. This is to Adrian's comment. Magic is an illusion. Well, it depends on your definition of magic. Magic is an illusion if it's stage magic. That's an illusion. We're not talking about that type of magic. So obviously your definition of magic is not coming from a left-hand path or black magic perspective. Magic is simply enforcing your will for a favorable outcome. That would be what black magic is. There's different levels of magic. One aspect of magic is reprogramming the subconscious mind to enforce that will. We're talking about factual aspects of magic, not illusionary, faith-based stage magic. That's not a reality. So I would have to also type in for everybody in the room your definition of magic, your definition of spirit, because you said your spirit is real. So you need to type into the chat so everybody can see your explanation of the spirit being real, and then we can address that further. And then we can, first of all, I don't follow anything, and we can go from there. But see, when people make statements or questions, they need to identify what perspective they're coming from. So to explore that further, I would ask you to type in, explain to me in your words what your definition of spirit is and magic, and then we can go from there. All right, what else we got? Okay, I'm just kind of skipping the. I know you guys are talking amongst yourself. I'm just going to bypass that. Okay, again, Adrian, you're a funny person. You got your own personal perspective on things, and that's fine. I couldn't care two shits about Caligula because I'm not comparing. Again, like I said, everybody's journey is different. I'm not going to compare mine, yours, or anybody else. I couldn't give two shits about Caligula. I don't give a fuck what happened to him. You understand? And his concept of God and the concept of God, I explained that earlier. I'm not even going to get into that again for the waste of time. I think I addressed that earlier. So I won't even waste my time on that. See, we've been saying from the very beginning of the show, do not compare your journey and experiences to somebody else, but apparently that didn't sink in with you. So I couldn't care about Caligula, Caesar, or any of them people. It had nothing to do with me. I can only tell you my path, my success, and the confidence I have in doing it. I'm not speaking for you or anybody else in the room. I couldn't give two shits about Caligula. It's irrelevant. But apparently that's important to you. That's what I'm saying. So it's your personal perspective, and that's fine. You and anybody else is entitled to that. So I think you're missing the overall point. I think what happens is you have your own ideology, and when somebody doesn't agree with it, you like to slickly throw a comment in there and think you're putting something intelligent out there, and it's not really intelligent. It's just you're just showing your personal opinion on things, and it's pointless. You're pretty much wasting your time. Again, I guess this came earlier. I already addressed this. Again, then you put another comment. We are human beings, not gods or goddesses. I would have to have you type and write in. Please explain to everybody in the room what a god or a goddess is to you. That's the trickery when people do shit like that. They want to throw a statement out there, put question marks, right? And that's a red flag. They put question marks because what they're trying to do is enforce their personal belief or method on somebody subliminally, right? But they don't want to explain in their own words. If that's the case, again, you're making all these statements, but you're not telling us your perspective on it. Where I'm being clear, and everybody in here I see that's typing is being clear on their perspective. So again, I would have to tell you, type in, please, your definition of a god or a goddess, because I'm not talking about no mythological monotheistic God. And then what's the other point? We don't have no more power to be that. I would have to have you explain that. If you think your whole existence is to just be mortal and human, you would have to explain that to me from what perspective and concept you're coming from, because I totally disagree with that, 100%. This is probably not the path for you. You're probably wasting your time even being in a room. If that's the way you feel, this is not for you. Then go back to being mortal, human, and accept your lowly circumstance. That's all. It's that simple. Okay, what else have we got? Yeah, that turn the other cheek shit is funny. That earlier I was talking about if people want to not to rehash that again because I went over it, but that same biblical God, like in the New Testament, and Jesus didn't really tell nobody to turn the other cheek because remember he said he came to bring war. He came with the sword, not to bring peace. That's right there in the book of Matthew. This whole turn the other cheek shit comes in those gospels that were written by men later, because this same God that says turn the other cheek and be docile, and again I'm watching sports as I'm talking to you guys, so if you see me looking over there, that's why. Turn the other cheek. It's the same God that again promoted lust, incest, rape, violence, death, bloodshed, war, looting. I mean, you name it. But then there's commandments that say you can't do that. But when the God of the Bible tells you can, you can't. But anyway, I don't want to waste my time. It's a waste of energy. I think you get the point. Yeah, stuff, though. That's what I'm exactly. It is. Everything is about perception. Okay, because your personal truth, and that's why I did a video. Is there such thing as absolute truth? Pure, undiluted, absolute truth? No. Not a collective. We're not talking about basic. When we talk from a spiritual perspective, no. Okay, but we're not talking about basic shit. 1 + 1 is 2. No, we're not talking about that. Truth is based on where a person is in their own spiritual journey is going to determine their perception of what spiritual truth is to them. And that's fine. But where the problem comes in is some people just get easily pissed off when it doesn't line up with their ideology, especially religious people. So that's where the disconnect comes. Like, even though we might go in on religion and the Bible, I got no problem. If you are a practicing Christian, Muslim, or Jew, and you upkeep it to the best of your ability and you're power to you. The only problem I have is when you try to force that bullshit on me because I don't agree with it. Then we got a problem. Then I got to go in, and that's it. So as long as, look, you're the example of it, I'm cool with it. I ain't got nothing against it. What I do have a problem is when people try to force it down your throat. And we don't do that on this path. That's why I said, we're not trying to convert nobody. The thing I never understood, you see it in all these platforms. I'll go on other platforms. I never understood the person that comes in there and wants to be argumentative and will stay in there for hours. If they're so in disagreement with it, it's as simple as just go and leave the room. Go do something else. It's not for you. And we've always said from day one, this is not for everybody. Okay? Just like playing sports. You might like a sport. You might dislike a sport. It's just not for you. Right? Look, you might love basketball, but it don't mean you can play it. Right? It just may not be for you. That's it. It's that simple. All right, what else we got? Damn, Wacky J, you seeing bats and cardinals and shit? Where the fuck you at? Fuck, you walking in the jungle? All right, what else we got? Yeah, I'm not, as it's getting to the point, I'm going to waste my time. But again, I got to be 100, not a very intelligent statement. This was Adrian's comment to Stuff Dog. That's the problem. Perception, not the truth. I mean, there's like nothing sinking in there. Again, explain to us your definition of perception and truth. Okay? What is your definition of pure, absolute truth? I don't see nothing being typed in, taking no stance on nothing, just making comments of disagreements with things that you personally don't agree with. That's perception. Because you don't personally agree with somebody saying, because you're perceiving it. Can or cannot two people perceive the same things differently? Is that not a fact? I can put this bottle in the center of a room, and we can look at it from different angles and see different things. People's experience is what gives them the certain levels of perception, and that can be confused for truth. So first we have to identify perception and truth are two different things. Perception is what people use to identify what they think truth is. That's the point. And I don't think you're explaining it. But again, we would all like to hear your full breakdown on what perception and truth is to you in your words, rather than just commenting on people and being in disagreement with what they're saying. You're not showing anybody what stance you take. It's just a bunch of mouth flap. That's it. Anyway. Listen to the slave mentality now. I think we're going to have to block you soon because now you get. Listen to Adrian's slave mentality. Sometimes we can't control what's around us. We just need to accept. I totally disagree. Totally. Couldn't agree anymore. All right. What else we got? Stuff though, you trying to be light and fluffy? That's a good question by Blair. Is there a certain way to move up the tree, or is it up to the adept initiate? It's always up to the adept or the initiate. Okay. I mean, do you have to go in a chronological order? Definitely not. But I would again tell you, you must educate yourself if you're going to work with any of these energies. Be conscious and aware. Now, utilize the concept when you look at, oh, damn, I can never say the full name. The aspect that opens Lilith for that guidance, I would start somewhere in that area with one of those parts of the tree, because to me, it would make sense, especially if you're exploring and you're new for the first time. But you'll find out when you start really understanding the breakdown of what the tree represents and how you can apply it to yourself from a mental standpoint. I would best be guided by what you got going on in your life. Because as we went through them, the brief explanations towards the end, remember, they all deal with a certain aspect that you got going on in your life. And I've always told people the best way to approach ritualistic and spiritual work is to address what's currently going on in your life, needs and things you got going on in your life. All right. So that would be the best approach. So as far as going in a systematic or chronological order, no, it's entirely up to you. But again, I want to make it clear. If you're new, I would kind of probably get familiar with them first and probably go in that order so you get familiar with how they work. Again, not mandatory, but to me, it would probably be the best way. But it's not mandatory. Okay? All right. Yeah, well, let me tell you something. To get off the subject for a minute. Fucking Yankees. If any more people go on the DL, we'll be playing AAA farm team. I mean, got 12 guys on the injured list now. It's fucking nuts. Well, Greg Bird, that doesn't surprise me. He's back on. He's a little soft pussy. His mangina hurt. He hurt his mangina now. But man, I ain't never seen this in all my years. But it's good because Boston sucks even worse. So as long as Boston's shitty and we can stay a notch above them, I'm just hoping we can hold even keel and get everybody back. But I don't think you're going to see Andujar. I think he's going to have to get a surgery. I know we're probably talking about shit now. People don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But because I see somebody put Yankees in there, I got to talk about it. We probably won't see Andujar. I know he's going to try to you can't, in my opinion, rehabbing a labrum is tough. He's going to get seasoned shoulder. Didi won't come back till after the break. Saravino probably right before the break. We'll probably get Stanton back real soon. I don't expect that to be major. Hicks, that's a fucking enigma in itself. He just signs an extension and he can't stay on the field either. And him, you can't figure that one out either. And then Betances, shoulder inflammation, that could be something that lingers through the whole year. I ain't never seen a team who was so healthy in spring training and then right before spring training ended, everybody fucking fell like flies. Bird going on the DL today, that don't surprise me. He's soft anyway. I think it's time personally to part ways with him and let him go. He's just been a waste of fucking time now. You know, he had that good run when he first came up, but he's done. He's got the injury bug. People forgot. We still got Jacoby Ellsbury, and they just transferred him to the 60-day DL. And that's a waste of fucking money in life. And we're stuck with him money-wise for another 2 years. So it's a hot fucking mess, man. But the good news is, people, Boston Red Sox suck major ass right now, worse than us. And it's always good we could kick their ass. And Paxton finally pitched a good game today. And they're not hurt, people. And that's the difference. We're all fucked up. We got an excuse to kind of be a little sucky right now. I mean, I didn't even recognize the lineup today. And fucking Judge ain't getting nothing to hit because there's nobody hitting in front of him or behind him. But, hey, look, if we could just hold afloat and get half or more of these guys back, we'll be all right. All right, anyway, I don't want to bore nobody with my baseball. All right, what else we got? All right, I think I'm going to go to the phones soon. I'm going to leave this before we go to the phone. And I agree. Some people have cognitive dissonance, right? You can present them with certain facts, but they just ain't going to accept them, right? I agree with that. All right. I got to step away for one quick second to check on my little guy. And then we're going to open the phones. And if some people want to come in live to ask some questions, so give me one quick second to go do that. I'm just going to make sure he's straight legit. And I will be right back. All right. Had to get my little source of potassium. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to focus on, I'll look in between, but I know the last couple of weeks I haven't really been paying attention to the chat, but I'm going to go ahead and open the phones. Raven or Maya, if you're still here, do you have the phone number? I can never remember the fucking number. And if you want to come in live in the room, let me know at the bottom and I can send you the link. Well, matter of fact, Raven, if you're still listening, just so we could test the phone line, I know last week we had a problem. Maybe we can get you to call in first to test it. Are you there? Did you leave? No, that's the wrong number. Oni, that's not the right number. There you go. Raven, can you call first so we could test it? Because remember last week we had a problem. Can you call in so we could test it before we open it up? Let's do that real quick. And make sure everybody can hear, because remember last week we had an issue. Let me have her do that first. Make sure everything is running right. Okay, waiting. I'm waiting. Can you hear me? I'm sure we are, but I want to make sure. You're probably not paying attention. Okay, here she is. Yeah, let's see if it works. What up?
What?
I want to test it to make sure it's working. Say something so I could ask the people.
I am saying something.
Fucking wise ass. Can you guys hear everything? Can you type in that you can hear? Did you hear?
Well, apparently. I believe you just stated that you was going to have me test the lines, but apparently.
Okay, they can hear. I'm hanging up on you. Somebody else is calling. I'm going to hang up
properly.
on you. I'm going to hang up on you. Okay? Who's that calling? All right, sorry, just call back. I'm going to send you the link, Raven, if you want to come in the room so you could say what you were saying. I'm going to keep the phone line open, all right? I'm sending you the link. All right, I just sent you the link. You want to come in. All right, the phone lines are fine, people. Last week, I think it was just a little technical thing with YouTube. I know last week we couldn't get anybody. Well, people were able to call in, but you couldn't hear anything. But we're good. Just want to make sure you guys can hear good. All right, so if you want to call in, you see the number up there, 561-962-1137. Again, if somebody's on the phone, don't call in because I'd have to disconnect them to get to you. So as soon as you hear that nobody's on the phone, that would be the time to call. Don't start calling in when somebody's on the phone because it's just going to go to voicemail. I can't answer it because I'll disconnect the current caller. All right. If you want to come in the room, type in the chat and I'll send you the link and you can come in live and ask a question. And again, please be conscious of your background noise. Don't have another device going on in the background because it gives us a serious echo. Also be conscious if you got headphones on, that sometimes can create an echo. All right, Oni, I'm going to send you the link. All right, and again, when we get multiple people in the room, let's not over talk each other because it gets a little bit noisy. Because I know it'll get to a point where we have 4, 5, 6, 7 people in the room. Let's let one person talk, and this way we could hear. Because then sometimes it gets so noisy you can't hear anything. All right, Oni, I'm sending you the link to your email. So Raven, what were you saying? I didn't mean to cut you off because somebody was trying to call in. You want to finish what you were saying? Raven?
I'm being quiet. I was making sure you was talking.
No, finish what you were saying because...
Go ahead. No. Go ahead and answer the call. Oh.
No, the call. Lost the call. That's why I was telling you to finish.
Hey,
Oh,
y'all.
no.
What's up?
Hey, Miss Oni.
How y'all doing this evening?
Good.
Happy early birthday.
Thank
Yes,
you, girl. I'm gonna be the big
as well.
5-0. Can't wait. I'm chilling.
A
But
lot of people
Raven,
don't make it.
what were you saying before the call came in, though?
I wasn't saying anything in particular. I was just still talking to make sure that I could be heard because I had left the chat. But irregardless, still though, on the subject of the conversation of tonight, I hope people get it. That the main message I gather is work on yourself.
Correct.
I was going to say a bad word, but I cleaned up my
Oh, yeah,
language.
work on your shit, but
I no, that wasn't going to be it. It's going to be doubly bad. Okay.
okay. But the
So
thing I was, but go ahead, and I'll finish. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, but again, that is the thing, but not just saying it. You know, the
Doing
objective,
it.
yeah, the objective tonight was, but also getting in depth of ways to do it. And the reason why I used the last couple of weeks this concept of the clipothic tree, because it's giving you practical methods to actually do it, not just talk about it. Because sometimes we get caught up in the catchy, trendy phrases. Yeah, I need to work on my shadow self. It sounds good, but now the next question that follows up, well, what specifically are you doing to do that? Now, working with the demonic realm, the clipothic tree is a great tool if you use it ritualistically. So I want to make sure, rather than just talk about it, we're actually using methods and concepts where we're actually applying it. That's the difference. But go
Yeah,
ahead.
and I can agree with that. Just on the strength of when you start, okay, because you have said, and I think this is where some, not all, may be a little lost, is that you have to find out. You have said it like 1,001 times. You have to find out what works for you, because what works for you is going to work for you, and when it's your own creation, it's going to work for you. Because it's you coming up with the method to get over the hump of whatever it is. And I can say that from experience. As you know, the struggle has been real. But once you start seeing the results, you start seeing that little peak, then you can, have that side moment and say, okay. But some things, it's not a next day result.
Correct.
Some things, when you're working on yourself, it's going to take, just as you said it before, you got 20 some years of shit to deal with. So don't expect that 20 some years of shit to disappear
Correct.
within 24 hours. That's not going to happen. You're going to have to delve deep and figure out how you even got there 20 years later dealing with something. You're going to have to figure out how to work that out and move past it. People can tell you all day. I can sit here and tell you all day, write fear on a candle, burn it, and deal with it. But that's not going to resolve the issue. It may relieve you for a moment, but the shit is going to come back because you're not addressing the issue. And that's work. And that's the work that you have to put in.
That's correct. But were you also earlier, I don't know if you were on when I said, that's why, like you said, the struggle is real, right? That's why I said the real quote unquote God or goddess on this path is the one that emerges from that struggle and and adversity, because that's the one that's going to grow. That's the one that's going to become refined and polished. Because when you go, like you say, I always talked about the struggles and the hardships is where the most tremendous growth is. Now, again, I'm not telling everybody to put themselves in a struggling situation, but I have more respect because I've come from that myself. You understand? Coming from those circumstances or situations in life where shit was always a struggle. I'm talking about just necessities, food, shelter, clothing, upbringing, right? Coming from that and then seeing, where you're at now or what it can lead to and the potentials and the possibilities. To me, that's the person or the individual that really grasps it. I'm not saying, look, some people, they're fortunate. They just didn't have to go through as much as others. But the person that comes up, where you used in the book the term, we all familiar with the phoenix rising from the ashes, because the true magician is one who can take the adversity and what did it say? Master it, change and evolve from that and get tremendous growth out of it. See, that's why I tell people, don't just look at hardship as why me, because some people take the why me mentality and that puts you in a fucked up place, because then the self-doubt creeps in. The what's wrong with me? What am I not doing right? Why is this always happening to me? That weakens and diminishes your power. It's happening to you for a reason. You just need to understand it and figure it out. And I'm saying that from somebody, and I'm sure many others watching and listening can come from a similar perspective. I realized when I started to take responsibility and analyze the situations I put myself in, the people I associated with, the things I did, the places I went, the circles I kept, I came to the realization I was the one at fault. And as soon as I addressed and changed those things, that's when shit started to take off. So just an example.
Yeah, I can agree. That's very true because I was laughing today because I started something. I don't know what was that last picture, February or January, and I was laughing today because it's still coming to fruition today.
Mm-hmm.
Just because when you ask for well, it was one of the things I'll just go ahead and say, which is for opportunities. It was something I created after something we had did in January, February, and I sat back and created something specifically for me to deal with me. And when I asked for just those opportunities to help me flip my mental, to help me see something other than, to help me to give me those opportunities, right, to overcome that block, right, whatever that block was. And I was laughing today because I'm like, the shit is still manifesting. You know what I mean? It's still unfolding, and this is months later. So that means that this still things is open up opportunities to help me see something that I had needed to see, or something that I needed to clear within myself. So maybe people can just think of it as that way as well, when they're trying to address whatever it is they're trying to address. Maybe they need to just help them look for opportunities, help them look, ask, try to find ways or ask for ways that will present opportunities for them to have a growth moment.
Well, but you hit it on the head. And I mean, not to get all in depth, but we know why that's changed for you, because once you started to grasp the understanding of it, see, that's the difference. Once you start grasping the understanding of it and getting to the root of the matter, that's when the change starts to come about. And like I said, when the finished product is done, it'll be, great reward. You'll see. But you'll see. Now, I'm not saying that for me and for other people to hear. No, you'll see. That's the key. Once you see and it filters out from you, then it becomes a reality. It becomes real truth. Real truth is when you raise yourself to the realization of it. That's when it becomes real. And that's you're experiencing that. But on another note, Oni, what's your birthday plans? What are we doing on Saturday?
I'm just gonna try to make it there. I ain't gonna say I'm gonna try. I'm saying I'm just gonna make it, and I'm just gonna celebrate my anniversary. A lot of things happen on April 20th. Adolf Hitler was born. Prince got rubbed out.
That's right.
There was a lot of blood wars going on. The exact time around when I was born in 1969, there was a lot of bloodshed happening. So I might have to cut my finger or something to shed some of my own blood to move forward. And speaking on that, 50 is like a pivotal point in life. And I've noticed over the past 3 days, I have been feeling this childlike quality, almost like as if I feel like I'm moving into a new area of understanding, which is important on this path because I'm mostly Ifa. I do a lot of divination, but it's also important for people to realize that there is no right, there is no wrong. There's only understanding.
There you go.
And it's important to understand that education, knowledge, wisdom and experience are 4 different things. Just because you have education, that does not mean you have knowledge. That does not mean you have experience. People go to school every day, but what people fail to realize is that the education system that we have been indoctrinated to believe in and what we think we are learning, it's really retarding us. It's sort of sending us back. And, this is no pun towards anyone, but unfortunately, sometimes the more education we get, the more dumbed down our spirit becomes. Because
I agree.
Let's be clear.
Systematic education. I agree.
Actually, yeah, when we come into this place, your spirit has to be dumbed down in order to even have a worldly experience, people. Let's be clear. Just me sitting here pulling cards, I pulled the 3 of Swords when we started this class.
Mm-hmm.
That card is about the abyss, the watery area of Binah in the 3rd Sephirah on the Tree of Life. There's a lot of emotions in this, live tonight. And you can clearly see that. It's not directed towards one person, but everybody's trying to gain understanding. No one is better than anybody. No one is smarter than anybody. And it's important to be clear that a degree, school, the best school is when you get your ass whipped. This is what people don't understand. You go out there and get hit in the head with a bat when you're playing baseball. You better believe you're gonna put on a helmet the next time because you don't want your damn head cracked. It's as simple as that.
That's right.
That's
Good
it.
point. Good point. Nah, point well taken. But look, that's what makes this path unique, is because it's a never-ending journey. And we're always striving to grow. We're always striving to learn. And obviously on that journey, we're gonna find, likes and similars and things that we don't vibe with. And I keep explaining that to people. And as sooner the quicker you're able to make that adjustment, because look, we get up every day. As I said, I would hope everybody on this path gets up every day with the intent of making themselves better than the day before, because that's the whole point, to perfect yourself on whatever level you can. Jack, I did send you the link. I don't know if you see, I typed in there. So if you check your email.
Well, Brother B, if nobody told you, I think you're doing an excellent job. And I personally have learned an enormous amount of things from you, from Raven, from Mama Muerte, and everyone that is actually traveling this path. Everybody gives me a different perspective on how I am understanding everyone's energy. That's definitely a truth in my book.
True indeed. True indeed. Good point. But Jack, I don't know if you heard me. I typed it in and I sent you the link to your email. So I'm not sure if you saw it. All right. Yvette, yeah, I saw your question earlier. There are meditation type rituals in that document, and I see earlier, I think Wacky J or somebody put it up. I think Trident 72 put it up. That document, the Clipothic meditations, outside of the breakdown of the tree, towards the last portion of the book, are a series of their rituals, but they're very meditation and visualization based. So yes, there is some ritualistic work you can do from the book, or create from the book, I should say, because you should kind of add your own flavor to it. But I think the reason why I had chose that particular document, because as the author explains in there, it's a very good introduction to start working with the Clipothic tree. I think it's presented in a very simple and easy format that I think if you have never worked with the Clipothic tree, I think it's very simple to really grasp, and I think it's a good place to start. So if that's your motivation, or that's something you're desiring to do, I would definitely look into it. But again, I want to be clear on this, and that's why we're focusing on this month, because of the ritualistic work we're getting ready to do at the end of the month. Which, shit, like I said, that's not this Friday, but next Friday. already. Almost end of April is here. And then I'm getting ready to go into some red gin magic and sorcery. That's going to get into some other shit, which I won't even touch on that now. That's going to come a couple weeks down. Probably not next week, the week after. I'm trying to connect all these systems together so you can Now, people talk about sex magic, but red gin sex magic is a whole another. We'll get into that when we get into it. I don't even want to get into that right now. But that's going to be one of the next areas we explore. And that's working with a lot of these fiery, quote unquote, spirits, right? They'll tell you in Voodoo that would be some of the petrol or fiery loa, the gin of fiery spirits. They're very intense, very aggressive on a multitude of levels. But the objective is, again, not to take this or the books. The books are just a reference, kind of give you an idea to open you up. Again, this is not the tell-all. It's to motivate you to do further exploration on this path and create your own work. That's the goal. This should motivate you, push you in the area. You understand? So we want to make sure of that. All right. Again, if anybody want to call in, I'm going to scan back up in the chat since we don't really have too many people calling in at the moment. Again, calling.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Calling numbers 561-962-1137. If you want to call in, the phone lines are open right now. If you want to come in, put your email in or say in the chat you want to come in and I'll send you the link.
Hey, Raven, I want to ask you a question. How do you get that picture on your icon here on the live?
My what?
You have a picture there.
Avatar.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you get that on there?
Just go to your Google settings. You got to just go to your Google settings and click your
Oh, okay. Okay. The little icon on my page. Okay, I got you. All right.
Yeah,
I was just
upload a photo. You just upload.
You know, I'm real ignorant to this, technology. I'm working on it.
That's all right.
That's a picture that's hooked to my email. That's what that is. So however I get the live link, that's what's hooked to my email.
Yeah, that's
a picture. Yeah, that's a picture that I took a while back. That's cotton.
I see. That's why I was wondering what was up with that. I'm like, I said, I wonder how she got that up there. I know if I press it and turn the camera around, it just says Oni Oshushina.
Yeah, just in your Google account, just click your icon and upload a photo. You'll be going to your main in the settings, and you'll see where you can change the photo.
Yeah, Brother Beniti, it's funny how this class that you're talking about is the exact Odu that manifested for me today. It's called Irete Meje. It's the 13th Odu in Ifa. I know that you know about that, but it's crazy because I'm like reinitiating myself right now into this new realm. And it's just mind-boggling. That's why I was kind of quiet, because sometimes you just have to take in the information because I mean, come on, I'm all the way in New York and you all the way in Florida. How the hell did you even know that? That's why when people say, you can't figure out how the hell somebody knows what the hell you're thinking, it's pure energy. Like, how would you even know that? You know what I'm saying? That shit is weird, man.
No, you definitely. There's a mental and a spiritual aspect of it. But to Chaotic Scott, to your comment, what we're going to deal with the red gin magic, which is an ancient practice of Egyptian sorcery.
Yeah, we're not going to get into that.
No, we're gonna but we're gonna go into not to get into it right now, but to give you a general idea. We're actually going to get into some of the ancient Arabic with it, the actual mantras and things of that nature. But we'll get into that. That's going to be upcoming. Just so you know, that will be coming soon. All right. Let me see if
month.
Once we're done with this month's out and we do the ritual at the end of the month. And again, as you see, the method that I use, I kind of stay geared for a couple of weeks, and not on the same topic as you see, but in areas that are affiliated with kind of what we're working with. So when we're doing this for this month, this is what we're working with here. That's how you step. what you see, that's kind of what we're doing here at the moment. And we just kind of try to expand it out. And then say you do make the decision, or anybody decides they want to come, they'll kind of be, you'll be on point with what's going on. You understand?
So Brother Benny, let me ask you this. What you think about the alchemists back in the old days that literally died mixing shit together, like sulfur, mercury? This is why I say experience is important. Sometimes you actually got to get fucked up. You know what I mean? Like some people even die learning this shit. That's why a lot of the times, you gotta be, work it, but you gotta be careful. You gotta try to use your whole mind,
Right. No, but that's a good point but you gotta remember, like on this path, when we refer to the alchemist or the philosopher's stone, you got to kind of look at it like masonry. Like Masons use the concept of what an actual mason does, an actual bricklaying mason does. But when they say they're a mason, you got operative and speculative. It's the same thing with alchemy. Like you say, they were alchemists that actually mixed chemicals and fucked around and experimented. And, and that's dealing with science and got themselves fucked up. But when we're talking about alchemy, for an example, for personal transformation, that's a good question. That's a good point. We're talking about when we apply the spiritual alchemy, because we're using the same concept literally an alchemist would use. He would use those scientific elements to create scientific alchemy, where we're using that same concept to transform ourselves spiritually. Even when you go back into the Baphomet symbol, remember he's got the Latin on scribed on coagulate to it just simply means from going from one state to another. And that's essentially what the path is about. That's what Baphomet represents. And I say represents, not a literal deity to be worshipped. He represents those high states of alchemy, because it is a very powerful alchemical occult symbol, because everything about it, it's androgynous in nature. We talk about this all the time, or masculine, feminine energy. It's got the breasts of a female, the male goat face of a man. It's got all the elements, the wings of the air. It's got the crown chakra, the flame. The crown chakra is vibrating and open via the pineal. It deals with equilibrium, totality. All of those are alchemical properties that deal with if you study alchemy or the Emerald Tablets, it'll tell you about decalcifying oneself. Right? Yeah. And it talks about all those things that make us dense, that hold us down, because essentially spiritual alchemy is about making oneself less dense, not just physically. It's talking about those things that weigh us down spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically. And the Emerald Tablets was the key to those secrets to alchemy, which really is breaking and gets in a nutshell when you're looking at the Baphomet symbol. That's essentially what you're looking at. And that's where some people that may not be familiar with the occult, because obviously it's one of the most popular occult symbols, whether you're on the path or not. But unfortunately, the ignorant have associated with Euro-Satanism, right? It's always associated with, to the ignorant I'm talking, it's always affiliated as a symbol of, modern day Satanism. It's not. All right, we got a call here. Caller, what's your name and where you calling from? Caller, you're on the call. Can you hear me? Yeah, you're on the call. What's your name? Where you calling from?
This is Suzette calling from California.
Suzette, what's up?
Suzette.
Where my dark and gloomy people at?
Oh shit, doing a roll call, huh?
Hey, Raven. Hey, Oni.
Hey, sis.
Hey, what's up?
I got 2 questions for you, Benini, tonight.
Oh shit, what did I do?
Okay. I got 2 questions. The first question is, and I've heard you say this on more than one occasion. Okay. What do you mean when you say that there's going to come a time where you got to show and prove? Okay. That's my first question. Okay. And my second question is, I've been working on my own energy, learning my own energy, and I'm starting to, pay attention to how I'm feeling at certain times, and if I'm anxious, if I'm angry, if I'm pissed, I'm starting to recognize when I'm angry, what's triggering it. So my question is, how do I direct that energy?
All right. Well, let me.
Especially when it's anger, I'm pissed off. How do I direct that energy so it works for me and not against me?
Good question. And you answered part of the question in your questions, but let me explain. And I'm glad you did that. The first question, when you've heard me say many times on the show, the videos, whatever, there will come a time where you have to demonstrate, show, and prove your power as a black magician or an adept. What I mean by that when I'm saying that is, for those that are on the path and are bullshitting themselves, right? What I mean by that is, it's just like anything in life, not just this path. There could be, again, because I always connect with sports. Let me use a sports analogy. It's like the dude that talks shit all the time, how he's great on the court, right? We all know one of these shit talkers from back in the day. Yeah, I'm the man on the court. You can't fuck with me. My game is tight, right? I got the best game. You guys can't dunk on me. I got the smoothest jump shot. I play the best defense. And then what? Dude had to actually get out on the court and you found out he was garbage. Right? We all experience it. Okay? So I'm using that analogy. It's the same thing with this. Let's look at the person. I'm so dark. I'm so gloomy. I'm so vampiric. I'm so into my chaos and my darkness. All right, you're talking a good game, Chief. But now when all that shit you just described comes at you, right? You just described, I'm going to get into that to your second part. And then all of a sudden, we're starting to see you ain't as dark and gloomy and as on the path as you thought. That's what I mean when I say you got to show and prove and demonstrate. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people on the path that fall into that category. And it's not being judgmental, because as I've also said on the show many times in my many years doing this, the first people that fall flat on their face that I see come and go, and I could be here all night talking about it, are the ones that come in, and Jack is here, and he can attest. We've seen this from going way back in there, how they so down and they so this and they so that. They're the first people to disappear, take off, and run, fail, because it's all talk. So it's about, what I'm trying to say is, it's not about talking the game. It's like my mom used to say, walk. If you talk the talk, walk the walk, right? And then it also applies in the sense of the people that are fronting and presenting themselves one way and trying to mask and disguise all their illusionary bullshit. That will come to the surface. I've also spoken, I'm glad you bring this up, because I've spoken on this on many different levels. And there's also another aspect, if you are on the path and walking in certain circles, and I'm saying certain circles you walk in, you're going to come in circles where not everybody is very open about this. There's a lot of powerful people that work on a multitude of levels, and you always hear me say, be careful what you're saying, who you're talking to, because you don't know sometimes who you're really talking to. But if you know what you're doing and you're confident, you have nothing to worry about. But some people will say things, and it's happened to me over the years in certain circles I walk in. It could be masonry. It could be another system. You will get pulled to the side and literally be tested, shown, and proven to see if you're worthy. Like, for an example, now I'm speaking on a literal level. If you're walking around saying you're a Mason or you're XX Rosicrucian on this level, or OTO, there's certain people that are in those esoterical orders that take it a lot more serious and fanatical than myself, who belongs to those orders. They might see you and pull you aside and start asking you for passcripts, passwords, signs, shakes. And if you can't give them, you're going to be exposed as a fraud. That's my whole point.
Gotcha.
If you're saying you're initiated in Palo, a Polaro might pull you to the side and pick your brain, and you're going to look like a complete fucking fool and an idiot. And then you could say, well, I don't care. I don't need to be. Well, then don't talk about it. That's my whole point. So that's what I'm saying.
What do you think is the deal with a lot of people just overcompensating, man? Like, we've been doing this for years, and a lot of people, I'm noticing the trend, just they overcompensate. They feel like they gotta. It's overcompensation when they're doing that. So it's like, why do you think there's a big need for that when you meet these people?
Because, good question, a simple answer. Because most of them have been dick riders and bullshitters their whole life. Most of them basically don't want to do the work. And I talked about in the video, what you're talking about, a video I did late last year or something like that. When I was talking about, it was a video, I think, Stop Faking the Funk. because all what you're describing, the overcompensation, are all the people, they want the accolades, and it's ego driven, and they want titles, they want people to look at them as some fucking guru. All that stuff is done because there's a personal self motive. And that's why I did that video, Faking the Funk. Now, I didn't put my credentials out there because I wanted a pat on the fucking back. You know my credentials because you walked with me through some of these things. I did that for what you're talking about because, excuse me, people will go that length to overcompensate because they want to create this false image and appearance of themselves, that they know it alls, they know everything. I did that, been there, done that, got the t-shirt when they ain't really been out past the front door of their house. And I put that video out because, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, even though you go through a lot of those systems that I just mentioned, there are certain people you got it. There's a line that they can be, they take it a lot more serious and fanatical than you might, and you're playing yourself when you're overcompensating. When I say overcompensating, in regards to what you're saying, is when you're claiming to be things that you're not. So you got an agenda because you're trying to portray yourself. So let me give you an example. Why would you say, if you sucked at sports, like use the sports analogy, why would you say your game is tight and then you get out on the court and you're exposed? Because you had an agenda. You were faking the funk. You were fronting. You want somebody to see you for something you wasn't. That's the overcompensation part. It's the same thing. We know, and you've been around, you know, in all these conscious circles, you will have all these guys that'll be on all these platforms calling me, I'm a Kemetic priest. Well, you know, I'm just saying, look, you could be whatever you want. I'm just saying, you could be whatever you want. I'm not knocking you for that.
Oh, gosh.
You understand? No, I'm saying you go on these, I'm a Kemetic priest.
I know, I've seen it, man. I've seen it.
I'm a doctor of herbology, right?
And they got a heavy cough and shit.
Yeah. They got to go sick and shit, and they coughing up a lung. I'm just saying, this path, you could be whatever you want to be, and whatever it is.
You perpetrating a fraud.
Big time. So that's the part of the question when I'm talking about you will have to show, demonstrate, and prove. So hope that's clear. But I want you to be able to understand it. It's on a multitude of levels. And I forgot the second part of your question. What was the second one?
The second part of my question is I'm starting to pay attention to my energy. I want to learn how to work with my energy. So I wanted to know, how do I direct my energy? You know, when I'm angry, when I'm frustrated, when I'm feeling anxiety, how do I direct that energy into something that's going to work for me and not against me?
Okay, so that's a very good question. So let me give you an example. Let's say, did you say one of them was anger, controlling your anger? Did I hear you right? I want to make sure I heard you right.
Yes.
So
anger, anxiety, and frustration. That type of energy.
Okay, but there's a certain passion that's fueling that, right? Or a certain emotion that fuels that. When we look at the basic explanation, we know emotions are energy in motion, right? That's what they tell you, right? So let me give you an example.
Yes.
As quick, when you get angry, give me an example of something that angers you, that you react, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Give me something that just gets you angry.
I got somebody who's going behind my back, going to my supervisor, stabbing me in the back, and I'm pissed off about it. Okay,
so take that same passion, and I can hear it in your voice. Take that same passion and desire, and if you have perfected your craft, I would apply that in my ritualistic work to neutralize that person. Do you understand me? You following where I'm going with it?
Yes.
All right, so let me give you an example.
How do I do it? How do I do it? Okay, you said use it in my ritual, but how do I do it at the time? Because you know, when I think of ritual work, I'm thinking I'm at home, I'm doing it.
No.
I'm pissed off at work right now.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. I'm not right. But hear me out. I'm not talking about just going to your altar and doing a candle magic ritual or doll sorcery. That's part of it. I mean, that's taking it to doing root work, and if you really want to fuck somebody up. But I'm saying, like, let me give you an example. If you are on the job at the very moment, if you have the confidence and the power of your mind in sending energy out, you can do a ritual right there on the spot and visualize that individual right then and there. For an example, visualize her being engulfed in flames. For an example, If you tap into one of the archetypes, visualize the skip of the holy death, her tongue being removed, her eyes being plucked out, her ears, so she can't hear, speak, or call anything in regard. You can do a visualization ritual right on the spot to neutralize her. And if your magic is power and your mind is powerful, it will shut it down right there on the spot. Trust me. It can be done right there at the moment. In addition, if you extend that work further out, if you want to extend it to the ritual chamber, you can. If you want to do root work, you can. Now, regardless if people understand the science of that or think it's real or not, it's real.
Work is definitely real.
It's real. But you bring up a good point. How do you channel that energy? All right, I don't know who's calling, but as soon as this call is complete, caller 706, call back, and once we're done with Suzette, all right?
You know, a lot of it comes, you know, the thing is that everybody already has that strength to do that. I'm on the thing. Everybody has the strength to do that, but I think it's just a belief in themselves. If you believe in what you got, you don't realize how massive your abilities can be, but a lot of people just don't believe.
Well, now I don't want to put all that. I don't want to put, you know, not that it's a secret.
No, I know that I could tap into it. I know it's in me. I feel it.
Well, look, if you understand real black magic is about going into the in-depth, into the deep aspects of your subconscious via your subjective realms. That's where your magic is formulated. So it starts there. And I keep telling people, and I'm not just to throw this out there as if I'm plugging the class in, those that are taking the class are grasping that. Because in essence, that's what the class is about, to show you. You don't really need any of these external things. They're just tools that enhance. But you can do something like that simply right on the spot. It's that easy. Excuse me.
Yeah, so thank you for saying that too.
Right? Say it again.
I said, all right.
All right. So, but it's a good question. So there's different levels to this shit. You can do it. And I'm glad you bring that up, because not all I've said that many times on many shows, not all magic is done in the chamber room. Okay. But so hopefully that helps you. All right.
It does. It absolutely does. I'm telling you, I appreciate what you guys are doing. Keep doing what you're doing. All of you guys.
I appreciate it.
I'll talk to you later.
All right. So call from 706 that was trying to call in. You can call back in now. The phone lines are free. But like I said, when somebody's on the line, I can't answer because I'll disconnect the current call. So whoever call from 706.
Let me say something here. They'll call back. They got it.
Raps.
They got it. They'll call back. But I'm glad you said that, because I was going to mention that earlier and I got away from my thought. But when she was talking, it was coming back. But you addressed it. Is that this session, this third session of classes are for.
Let me just get this call up, Raven. Hold on. We're gonna go back.
Just pick it up. Pick it up.
Caller, what's your name and where you calling from?
Hi, Lovey, calling from Athens, Georgia.
Love it. I thought I recognized that 706. I knew it was Georgia. I just didn't know where.
Yes. I have a quick question.
Sure.
I don't know how to say. Well, I'm going to start off. I was listening to a lecture. It's probably not too long ago, but I was been doing research with the Apollo Mayambe deities.
Okay.
And what I did was one night I put the El Cristo Negro symbol. I drew it on my arm.
The sigil?
My left arm. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
And I had a dream that night, and I went back in the dream. I went back to a church that I grew up as a child going to. My grandma used to take me. But the church was dark, and it's like the only light that I saw in the church was from, the light from the outside shining in. And where the preacher would, with the, I guess they call it the pew where the preacher stands to preach. Right. It was this like shadow, like circle figure. I mean, it really didn't have a figure. It's like just a shadow. Mm-hmm. And then I woke up, but the next morning I had 3 scratches on my right arm.
Wow. Okay.
And I was wondering if you could help me with it.
Yes.
Did I have any? Did I make contact?
Well, yeah. Let me ask you this. I'm gonna give you my thoughts on it, but I would also encourage you to further explore after what I'm getting ready to tell you. Let me ask you this: you have not been scratched or initiated in Palo and El Cristo Negro's mysteries? Yes or no?
No.
Okay.
No, I never have. I'm from where I'm from. I've never went outside of. I was raised up Christian, and I converted from Christian to Hebrew Israelite, and from there, and I just went off into metaphysics, occult science.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you this, and I'm going to tell you from what I'm hearing, and this is just to push you in the right direction, because I always tell people this: when you have it could be a dream, a personal experience. It's personal, and there's a personal message in there for you. And really the true hidden meaning is when you do, and I'll give you some suggestions, is when you do that further exploration and work to get that understanding. But I'm going to tell you what I'm hearing, because what you're describing, not exactly the same way, has happened to other individuals. And it could be a sign of a couple of things. Because there's a term in Palo, which you're probably familiar, and I'm not sure whose lecture. You mentioned you were watching a lecture. Was it just
Brother Panic?
Brother Panic?
I don't know if you're familiar with occult lectures.
Yeah, I've actually had him on the radio show. I actually know him, yes. What I'm hearing from you is when you say you had scratches, and when each individual, I asked you if you were scratched or initiated in those mysteries of El Cristo Negro, because every time an individual gets scratched in Palo, you literally get cut with the knife, a certain amount of marks. Same on my arm. The marks mean something to the initiate. So what it seems to me, yes, it seems like you tapped in specifically.
And see, I had a witness just to make sure I wasn't, because they didn't hurt. I mean, it kind of itched.
No, I didn't.
It might have been a irritation or something. But I had asked my husband to look at my arm just to make sure I wasn't seeing stuff. But he saw it too, and it's like a couple of days later, it just went away, and didn't see it again. Right.
So what I'm hearing is, and you're glad that that's the way you got it, because the literal ones actually hurt, by the way. I just thought I'd share that with you. I just thought I'd share that with you. No, but
thanks for the side note.
Yeah. No, but again, I'm just saying this based on what you're telling me, and I'm going to give you some suggestions of how you can explore it to get your own personal confirmation. Because at the end of the day, that's what you really need to do. But it definitely seems like, now, did you study and read stuff about this? Were you tapping into it at the time before you had this experience, or this just randomly happened?
I mean, I just did it when I was listening to his lecture. I had been reading about it because he had referred to what is it? It's one of Carlos Montenegro's books, the book about Palo Mayombe.
Right.
And I was reading it up. You know, I'm new to it, and I just tried it, and I just drew. I mean, the closest, I guess you could say I felt like I was close to El Cristo Negro because of how I was raised up as a Christian, my Christian background. And I ain't gonna lie, I've always been that they would call me weird because I would ask questions like, well, God made us, and who made God? And, you know, it's just, hush, child, you don't ask those type of questions. So I was kind of, went off into, darker areas. And it was,
well, see, what you're doing is describing. Now, do you understand the characteristics of that particular power deity, what it represents? Have you really engulfed yourself in that, the warrior aspect, the questioning, the intensity of it? Because even though you might have been raised Christian on the surface, but that's not really what lurks inside you. And usually El Cristo Negro presents himself to people that have that type of warring nature, that nonconformist nature, the individual who wants to explore. And there's an explosive part, of that. Like, for an example, yourself, you might be raised in that background, but by no means are you timid, even though you might sound very low keel and together. But there's a spark of rage and fire in you that nobody really would want to see that side of you. But that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing, but that's where you get the intelligence from. That's where you get that wisdom that, like you say, questioning. You just mentioned like you would question it, or you're not supposed to ask those questions. El Cristo Negro.
That would fuel me to be like, okay, I'll just stay out of your circle and I'll go off into a circle where I can get these questions asked.
Right. So what I'm saying, what I'm trying to push you in the direction is really understand what that archetype represents. And what you can do is by creating ritualistic work via the sigils, because the sigil, remember, sigils of veves are like gateways. You can open up portholes and connect yourself to those archetypes. They're just like bridges or gateways to these energies. So I took note of when you said that you drew the sigil, so you activated something via that, and you definitely made more of a mental and a spiritual link. And when you describe the scratches, it sounds like it's kind of like getting scratched on an esoterical level, but it's personal. Now, I'm not telling anybody else to listen because it's a personal experience to validate and accept that, but it's real to you. And there's a message.
And see, I was just giving him, because of hearing that, the only outside of hearing about El Cristo Negro, outside of that is mostly the religion, the Christian, the aspect of it. So when I first heard about El Cristo Negro, I was just thinking, like I thought that, okay, I finally, some of my answers, I'm on the path to getting some of my answers, my questions answered. And so I was just, I just want to thank you for allowing me to know who you are. And I put the sigil on my arm. And like I said, I had the dream that night, and then the next morning on my right arm, I had the marks.
Well, and again, like I was talking about earlier, I don't know if you were on earlier, we have to start trusting in our spiritual intuition. When we're having our visions and our experience, that is a reality and is 100% truth to you. Because nobody can tell you otherwise. Now, at the same flip token, it's not your job to convince everybody else otherwise to accept it. But as long as you know it's a reality to you, it happened, and you have the proof and the results to confirm it, that's all that matters. So I would use that as motivation to explore the path further by way of sigils, doing ritualistic work with that energy, because you're talking about the Black Christ, in essence, when we translate it in English. It's really the antithesis to what everything religion represents. It's kind of crazy that you bring that up tonight, and we're dealing with the Klippoth tree. And really, the Klippoth is the antithesis to what the Kabbalah represents. When you're walking the path of Palo Mayembe or a path like that, or tapping into an energy like that, you're basically taking the initiative to say, I'm separating myself from the bullshit, and I'm gonna.
Oh, I mean,
no. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, see, my parents, I have majority of my parents are deceased, and I have an older sister that's deceased, and so out of the 5 siblings, it's only 3 of us left, and the younger 2 are kind of like mentally challenged, so they depend on me and my other older sister, and it's like I've made my ancestor altar. I really started. It's like things connect to me. I mean, it starts doing it. It's not my will. Sometimes it does it on it. It does it on its own, and it's like some things I can't explain. But it's like I'm not afraid of it anymore. But it's like I was.
Let me say something.
I started getting into necromancy, and when I looked up, I was like, I'm just gonna go on YouTube and just type in what is necromancy. And one of your lectures came up, and I started listening to that one. And then when I clicked on your page, you had a class about Palo Mayembe and Palo Monte. But I clicked on the Palo Mayembe, and then that's when it had a notification that you were having a live tonight. And so that was one of my questions. I was gonna email you, but I hadn't, because like ever since then, I mean, I've been kind of on my own with it a little bit. Nobody really talks about it that much. But then when I was listening to your lecture, some of the things that you were saying, like I got to, maybe I ask him this question.
No, it's cool. But there's something you said that just stood out to me. Like you said, sometimes it just happens and you're not doing it, right? That's what we call in the occult. People don't understand the science of doing without doing. It doesn't mean don't do nothing and sit back and everything will happen. What it means is when you tap in, and some people it'll happen more naturally than others. There's really no explanation for it. That's the science of doing without doing. Once you are tapped in and you make the connection, things just tend to flow. Hence the science of do without doing. We hear that amongst mystics, and some people don't grasp it. But long story short, I would just keep encouraging. It's good to hear from where you came and where you're at now. And I would just encourage you to continue exploring those experiences via meditations, create your own ritualistic work to get further clarification. You can do invocation, because I tell people in that same Palo Mayembe video, you could still work with the Palo deities. You don't have to be initiated, but you need to just be conscious and understand the approach is different. So it's not the fact that you can't, but going through a traditional initiation is different as opposed to dealing with it on a higher level, in my opinion, like this. Because I always tell people, if I knew what I knew now, I probably wouldn't even fuck with half of the shit I have made myself go through them. But at the same time, it was pertinent for your growth. So long story short, good question. I would just encourage you to keep exploring that, and you'll get more clarity on it. It's not going to happen overnight, but it seems like, yeah, you definitely have tapped in on some level, but keep going with it. Keep exploring it and see where it takes you.
Okay, thank you. Peace.
No problem.
Blessings. I appreciate that.
And subscribe. If you hit the subscribe channel and the bell notification, you'll always get a notification when we go live.
Okay, yeah, that's what I did. I subscribed and it got the little notification.
Cool.
I'm on live tonight.
All right, appreciate it.
You know, another thing too, got to say real quick, man. Before she goes, one thing that helps out too is when you do get those flashes of inspiration, right? You gotta also be mindful of what your mood is. If you get inspiration, and you're in like a shitty mood or a bad mood, I wouldn't really trust it. But if you're feeling in a good and relaxed, balanced mood, and you start getting things like, hey, do this, do that, and you can kind of trust it, because your mood kind of dictates what you're going to attract, right? You know, so I think, and if you look at also in the Hermetic principles, right? You know, the law of vibration, you know, your mood is kind of like your vibration. So be mindful of your mood. Be mindful of how you're feeling, right? You always want to feel good. If you're feeling good and you get inspired to, hey, you know, light this candle or do this, then you ask yourself how you're feeling, and you're feeling good. All right, then I should go with it, because it's gonna bring you more good. So always look at things like that. Like you gotta see yourself like you're in a pylon, right? And you're in the middle of the pylon, and you're walking through a affinity amount of pylons, right? Always you want to be in that good state, and the pylon is supposed to represent, like, you know, that's something that may sound, but like you're gonna be in a good state. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna be at the gate, right? And to be at the gate, you know, is waiting for these impulses, waiting for the inspiration to do something. So always want to be at the gate. Just remember that.
Mm.
And see, it's funny you say that, because like it's really hard for me when somebody get me in a bad mood, or I'm depressed, or I'm really down and low vibration energy. It's hard for me to break it, but sometimes I have to either like listen to certain music and stuff, and then I get like in the zone, and that it's just one tool I've noticed I can kind of get the energy. I mean, it don't happen as fast as I want it to, but it's one little tool I use. I listen to all kind of music and stuff. I end up listening to classical music, and I got my kids, they'll come in and look at me like I'm crazy, but it's like I gotta get in this zone, because I swear I'm gonna nut the hell up on somebody. You don't want I don't want that smoke.
No, I feel you, because like it's the same thing with me, like, you know, being so tapped in, you know, emotions, you know, I have to control my emotions, right? Be very mindful of my emotions. So that's normal. You know, that's why the same thing we say, people come to do rituals, right? You know, we used to always say, like, come in a good mood, don't come in a depressed or a fight.
Like, you know, like if I have, you know, my company or my relative coming over, just, you know, I can sense certain energies, and it's like, in the beginning, I really ignored it, and I used to, you know, think it was just me, but I started, you know, being more aware, and it's like, wait a minute, y'all just came out, is this a bathroom? Y'all just come and dump y'all shit me or something? Now I feel like I'm in a funk. And so
that's normal. It's gonna get stronger as you go. So
good point.
Keep pushing.
Hey, Brother Beniti, you think I could? I just wanted to share an experience I had as far as that whole the spirit coming to you. I think we had talked about the whole cow food situation with me, how he came through the board through my divination.
Right.
And with that being said, I already know when I see a certain Odu on the board, I know that the deity Kalfu, who is, extremely dangerous, so they say, but I've never had any issues with him. I took him apples at the crossroad maybe twice. And every time I see a certain Odu on my board, he's letting me know that he's at the front door and I either need some kind of protection, he wants an offering, or something is there. Spirit will come to you if you're tuned in enough. And sis, I'm gonna tell you that's a good move right there. Stick with it.
Yeah, and but the key, what you say, Oni, is it's only dangerous to those that don't know what they're doing. So I want to make that clear. So when you hear statements like that, like you say, it's not dangerous to you because of the approach. If you know what you're doing, but even to what the sister, what's your name? So we can put a name to you. I don't want to keep saying the sister, but what was your name?
Lovey.
I'm sorry. You did say that in the beginning. No, because I want to what you were just saying, Lovey, like you were saying, when your company comes over and you could sense energy and, and all those things that come along with it and to piggyback off of what Oni was saying, all that is part, that's what I keep telling people, all that is part of the communication and the results when you're tapped in and you're connected in, because that's confirmation right there that there's some type of change, some transformation, things going on. But when you were talking about, like you said, quote unquote, they don't want that smoke, that's that Palo spirit. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because those Palo spirits have that type of vibe and energy, majority of them. They might operate and work in different ways, but the one that you're speaking of, that you've had the experience, it's that type of energy. So again, I would just encourage you to further explore it.
So Tim, when you say that it's that type of energy, it's like a no nonsense. I don't have time for BS.
Most definitely. Palo, there's no timid, laid back Palo spirits. Their level of intensity and aggression just varies from spirit to spirit. They're both aggressive. They will clear paths through.
Yes. Yeah, that's crazy. Like I think my spirit is like, bro, like when it comes down, get out the way. Like y'all seen it, man. Get out the way.
Yeah, Kalfu is crazy like that. Kalfu is you don't fuck with him because he can straight murk your ass, and that's real.
Well, it's very similar. It's very similar because it's a petro, it's a fire spirit. All those spirits that are in that category, they don't give a fuck about your emotions. They not care about your likes and your dislikes, your insecurities. It's just like when you invoke and you access that energy via your psyche. It's no different than what we were talking about earlier with the clip path and accessing those demonic energies. It's going to bring the change you need. Now, if you're tuned in and you connected, you're going to be able to be receptive, receive it, and deal with it. But if those around you can't, that's a whole nother fucking story.
When I get in those modes, it's like I get frustrated, and it's like I can't, like it's like somebody come to me and they're, such, and it's like I'm listening to it, but it's like something ain't adding up, and it's like I don't have time for it. And instead of coming out and telling them, it's like I guess they'll sense it, and they'll, let me leave you alone and stuff. And I'm like, why is everybody getting away from me? Why is everybody acting like, I'm just gonna bite their head off if they come across my path or something?
And you know what you're gonna have to learn when you tap into that energy? Tolerance. Okay. It's a little different than patience, right? Because there's a fine line between patience, tolerance, which could lead to ignorance. So what you really got to learn to practice in situations like that, when you work with that type of energy, your tolerance level. You got to be able to not, don't jump the gun too quick. Like you said, people will sense that and tend to jump the gun or be judgmental. And you already sense it before they do it. And you'll ask them, they're like, oh, no, that's not the case. But that's exactly what's going on. So yeah, you're gonna have to, whether you like it or not, it's a challenge. The tolerance factor always plays a key in that, So that's up to you. If you blow a gasket, you blow a gasket, if that's your choice. But if you're trying to keep it, kill where you don't, you're gonna have to work a little bit on the tolerance. But I feel you on that. All right.
But all of this energy that's going on is possibly because I invoked El Cristo Negro.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. But
because I ain't gonna lie, like Last year I saw nothing the whole year. I don't care if it was on the time, on the license plate or phone number. I started seeing 1111 or either triple ones, and now I see 333 or either 1212.
Oh yeah, you definitely tuned in now.
And it'll add up to 3.
There you go. So there again, confirmation, and trust in the confirmation of your results. That's it. All right.
Never doubt your gut, honey. Always follow it. I don't give a damn what anybody says.
There you go. All right, sis. Hopefully that helps you, and we look forward to hearing from you again soon.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. You have a good night.
A whole lot.
All right. Peace. Yeah, man. I mean, again, classic confirmation, like the sister Lovey was saying, and again, look, nobody's got a, and I was saying at the very beginning of the show, if other people maybe on now weren't on then, we get, and not, this is outside of what the sister Lovey just called in, but it's connected to what she was talking about. We have to learn to trust in the confirmation of the work we do and the results we get, because therein, right? There's that term. Therein lies the answer. That's the answer. So, all right. So we got another call. Now everybody want to call now. Unknown caller. What's your name and where you calling from?
This is a Blair calling from Washington.
All right. All right. You ain't got warrants or nothing, right? No, let me stop.
No, not that I know of.
No, I'm just kidding. What you got? Talk to us.
Okay, so you said something a minute ago that the I'm gonna say this word wrong. Kiplapa.
Kepera?
Yeah.
Okay.
I knew I was gonna say it wrong. Don't judge.
Sorry.
So that's like the anti of the Kabbalah. Did I understand that correctly?
Well, maybe no, not Kepera, but say it again. I think you're talking about Kether, K8.
The tree.
Yeah,
the tree.
Kether tree. Yes, yes.
Okay, so my question is, as you guys know, I'm pretty new, and I've been doing self-work and stuff.
Yep.
So when you're working with that, can you work both dualities at the same time?
Yes.
Or like, how does that work?
Yes, but you can only work both of them at the same time if you are willing and are gonna apply the clipothic tree. Because let me give you an example. For those that are strictly Kabbalists and practice Kabbalah only, really all that is Hebrew mysticism. And really, in essence, just so you can understand how you connect the both and can work with both of them, because they are connected. And I always compare it to what they talk about in a lot of the Kemetic schools of Ma'at and the 7 Hermetic principles. It's the same thing. You really can't have one without the other, because, follow me on this, Ma'at is basically the understanding of the objective realm. And the 7 Hermetic principles is basically the understanding of the subjective. So now let's switch that to the clipothic tree and the Kabbalah. If you go strictly Kabbalah, right, you're basically dealing with just another more mystic aspect of a spook god, the spook concept of creation, your connection with it, because they're still leaving it in the hands of this mystery god, this spookism. I know they get a little more mystical and scientific with the breakdown of the trees and the different levels, and then you're getting into all the angels and all. It's not really my thing. That's just me. But when you take the Kabbalah and the clipothic tree, because remember, what is the clipothic tree? It's just the opposite of what. This is why you hear the terms demonic or anti or evil. Not that it's evil in the religious.
It's just like the duality of it.
The duality of it, exactly. So when one goes, and that's why I titled this video this, because when one really taps into the clipothic tree, it'll tap you into the void and darkness, which they'll say that's where you start encountering what they call the Sitra Akra, right? Which is facilitated via the clipothic tree by Samael and Lilith, as far as what they represent. It connects you into that void and darkness, or what this gateway of the demonic realm in your mind is, which really brings up a true understanding of your dark side or your shadow self, which is the complete individual combined what you know on the surface as this surface individual, which really the Kabbalah is teaching you just in a more mystical way. But when you have the thorough understanding, or like in this sense, you use the term duality, it's showing you both sides, because it's not all just, unfortunately, fluffy bunny and roses. There's some painful shit there. But not only in that darkness is there just painful, gloomy, negative stuff. That's also false and an illusion. Your greatness lies there because the real intellect or the light you're seeking, that light is that intellect. That's where Lucifer / Samael comes in because he represents the light that shines in the darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. They tell you that that's Jesus. I know they like to tell you that in the Bible. But when you get into the esoterical mysteries, that light that shines in the darkness and the darkness comprehended it not, it's Lucifer, the light bearer. Because the light that Lucifer brings is the intellect. And the only way one can really get true intellect is by going into the darkness. One must go into darkness first to do the work of the light. One must first go into chaos and darkness to make an order of things for themselves. Because how can you have order? In order to have order, there had to be chaos first, right? Because if you say you cleaned up a room, what is that confirmation of? It was a mess before you cleaned it up. Things just didn't manifest in order. There was that dark, primordial, chaotic energy. Now we can get into Leviathan, the abyss. So, long story short, yeah.
So I have a question in regards to that. So after I did my ritual of self-connection, I'm not sure the title of it.
Okay. Which ritual?
Can you say that again?
No, repeat what you just said. You did a ritual of, you said self-initiation?
The self-connection, like bringing myself back to myself.
Mm-hmm.
Or self-acknowledgement, whatever it was.
Right.
So I did that. I did not get what I expected I was going to get. I thought some archetype I would see something like that. However, how do I take what I did see, which I wrote everything down. How do I take what I did see and apply it to this so that I can like uproot a lot of this bullshit that I have within me?
Well, whatever you grasped from it, first and foremost, is you got to make sure you understand it, because some of the stuff whatever you seen, experienced, or felt, sometimes doing it more than one time, it doesn't mean you just do it once. You might have to do it several times to keep getting a further understanding. So I wouldn't just do something like that one time.
Well, I figured that the reason why I only saw certain things is because this is what I need to work on first.
Okay. So,
and I do kind of feel like I do need to go back and do it again. However, which I feel like as you grow, you should constantly do that to keep making sure that you're uprooting everything.
Correct. So,
but most of the things that I saw was like figures of animals or whatnot, or different colors, and I pulled those things up, and the only thing that I don't have an answer to is like the color black, like black eyes or whatnot. But that's neither here nor there. But I just figured, okay, well, these things that represent these certain animals are within me, and then maybe I need to pull from those. But how do I connect them with everything?
Okay, so let me give you an example. Give me one animal you saw.
I saw a snake.
Okay, in your definition, first thing we saw a snake, what does a snake represent?
When I wrote it down, healing, transformation, primal energy, guidance, grounding.
Okay, so that's describing everything you need right now in your life, right?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like everything, like with the wolf, the owl, the like silver. I don't have anything written down for black because I don't know what that was.
But let's just do this real quick.
A different illumination.
I got you, but let's do this real quick with the snake. So here's how you narrow it down and make it work for you. All right, so you use one term for the snake, healing. So what I would do, this is just the process I would use. I would say to myself, right now in my life, what healing do I need the most right now? Spiritual, mental, emotional, or physical? I'm going to give you an example. Let's say your diet is terrible. You're not exercising regularly. Maybe you need to focus on physical healing. I'm just using an example. Now, I'm not saying that's your case. let's say you know, are not consistent in your studies. So you need to focus more time on spiritual work, ritualistic work, or maybe it's a mental thing. Maybe your anger, you don't have good control of your anger. Maybe your relationship and dealing with others. So what I would do is when I see something like that via that type of work, I would analyze my life in those areas. And once I narrow it down and say, okay, you know what? I'm going to apply the symbol of that to, after I go through that elimination process, I need to right now work on some spiritual stuff. Could be written, it'll be clear, but you got to go through the process of filtering through, and you have to figure out via the symbol. I'm just using the snake. You can do that with any of them, but that's how you narrow it down in detail. And that's how you would figure out, how do I literally take this and apply it my work? That's how, I'm just saying, that's how I would do it. You might come up with other methods.
So once you would do that, would you then go to the different aspects of whatever part of the tree you work on?
Well, let me give you an example. I could even use the symbol of snake. I would do a transformation ritual with the PEP, because remember, a PEP deals with transforming your chaos into what you want it to become, right? Because if you go into the coming forth by day, and I believe it's spell 8 and spell 30 something. I know spell 8 for sure. It talks about the symbol of the snake or the serpent being transforming, that it's snake, it sheds its skin continuously only to resurrect and grow new skin, a new body, which deals with regeneration, growth, and creation. So I might create a ritual and create my own invocation using the symbols or sigils of my Agatho-daemon or a PEP, and write my own personal invocation to that area in my life that needs to be addressed. And I can put all the symbols there. I can use red and black candles. I could add all the implements to enhance the energy of the ritual, because I want that to leave a lasting impression on my subconscious mind. And I would write my own invocation. So if it was an area in my life I needed to work on my patience, let's say, or maybe my patience is bad as a mother to my children, the invocation would be geared over transforming that aspect of myself. You understand? So you gotta take those, what you're getting in your messages and your communications, how can I transform that into my own ritualistic work, and then use that ritualistic work to bring the change within myself. So it's about going through the process. So it seems like you started it, and it seems like you're in that right path. I just think you need to get a little bit more detailed and specific. And then when you start to do that, the awareness just becomes natural. It's not really like an answer you're going to get from reading a book or hearing it. It's something you're going to get through that process where it's just going to click, and the awareness just comes. It's the best way I can describe it. But I think if you use somewhere, I'm not saying you got to do it the exact way I just told you. I'm just saying do it some shape, form, or fashion that you can come up with in that kind of spectrum of things. And I guarantee you it'll be clear as day of how you need to approach it. I don't think you'll have a problem with it at all.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks for calling, unknown caller from DC.
I guess I'm gonna have to unblock my phone now.
I'm just kidding. I'm messing with you. All right, cool.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, again, and then it's good to, like I say, people are. It's funny because people are tapped in, and I think it's we hear that term, trust the process. Trust the process. Yep. There you go. There you go.
A lot of people are scared of the unknown, and sometimes some of those things are scary to look at, but you fail to realize that's a part of you.
There you go. That's all it is. It's just the real aspect of you emerging. But something everybody was saying earlier, remember, one thing that can get very overwhelming and frustrating is you're not going to figure this out all right away. We got to understand that on this path. I know a lot of us, we have the ambition. We all want it so bad, but that can create inner strife. It can create inner conflict. That impatience on that level can become overwhelming because there's so much to learn. There's so many angles to this to grow. You can frustrate yourself by thinking I'm just going to get this all in one shot. Unfortunately, if it was that easy, shit, none of us would be dialoguing or having these conversations.
You know what? I speak to that. That used to be one of my biggest problems, man. Like, I know
Like,
I came a long way, but that was one of my biggest problems, man.
Tell him, man, you used to struggle manifesting midget strippers, and would you start?
Yeah.
Right?
Where the hell is that? Nah, but yo, I used to be like stressing it. Like, I need to come fast. This is happening faster. And it's funny, like, as I look back and I realize, like, that shit just takes time, man. Like, it's not like I've been doing this since I was like 20, right? So it's been almost like just under 15 years.
Right.
And it's like that shit take like I look back at it now, like it really wasn't really that long. You think about it, it was like, you know, but it's something that like it's like you think about it as you look back, you appreciate all the moments you go because sometimes I get frustrated, sometimes I get angry, like, oh, why things are not happening fast enough. But you know, again, Rome wasn't built in a day, so things just take time.
There you go.
And I think once people realize that and come to grips with that, at the beginning of their journey, because what's that quote? Oh, 1,000-step journey begins with the first step, right? Once you realize, okay, you know, like this is a process, it's gonna take time. I might not get it all in the first try. Once you realize that, then everything kind of flows. Then you start having fun with it. But when you like stressing it, you're not having fun with it, then it becomes unbearable.
Or it's that other saying too.
It's kind of like what Raven had said earlier. You know, we have to recognize that we, as people that live in America, we have actually, this goes back further than slavery. This goes back thousands and thousands of years. This bullshit is ingrained in us. Like, that shit is like weeds in our muscles. It's like yeast. It's like when you get ready to when you get on a yeast-free diet. People don't even know the pain of that. I went on a yeast-free diet to get rid of like all the bread, the sugar, and all that bullshit I had been eating for years. I literally had flu-like symptoms. I was down in the bed like I was exhausted because it was literally pulling shit from your cells, from your muscles, from your veins, like to undo all the bullshit in your mind. That shit can give you headaches. Like, people don't realize.
Let me ask you a question, Oni. So when you went through that, right? How'd you feel after? When you got through all that pain and everything, how'd you feel after the fact? Did your body feel like good? Like, how'd you feel after?
I felt good, and I knew damn well I wasn't going back there because I didn't want that pain no more.
There you go.
I couldn't go back. It was impossible. I couldn't even look back there. I didn't give a damn what was back there. I was not doing it. I said, fuck that.
No, but that's a good point. I mean, it's not like you say, it's withdrawal. You know, it's like a drug addict coming off of drugs. You know, when they go through the withdrawal, I mean, they go through that. I mean, I'm just using a literal analogy. But even to your point, Jack, to the saying, you know, taking 1,000-step journey starts with the first step. I can't remember if it's Confucius or Buddha. I get them both confused sometimes. It's that other saying, you got to take a long walk on a short path. And that essentially describes us. We want the path to be short, but we don't want to take that long walk because there's a lot to learn. And it can be overwhelming. It could be frustrating in the sense, like you said, you know, sometimes when you don't get the results right away, you get frustrated. But that dissipates over time with wisdom. You understand? If you're consistent, a lot of this like the best thing I can describe is it's hard to put in words when natural awareness kicks in. Yes. It's just a point where everybody gets to a point where things just click. And once that happens, that's when things really start to change because that inner awareness is now there. You understand? It's hard to explain that. There's not something you can really put into words to explain because call it the aha moment, whatever the fuck you want to call it, but everybody's going to have it at their time when it's time for them to have it. That's where the struggle becomes because what tends to happen when we see somebody else have it, we go, why ain't I having it? You understand? Or why is it not happening to me?
But I also think too, the wisdom kicks in when you start to see things that happen sort of consistently. Like you see it and you say, okay, I saw that before. I'm not going to trip over that. I know how to deal with it. That's when you know that you actually took in something, because what people fail to realize is this world is just a big ass stage. All of the shit that done happened before is just playing itself out again. You just have to be able to recognize it.
Well, and that goes back to something we used to say years ago, right? In classes and our older videos here. We used to say, look, when you hear me say the term, you're either part of the experiment or you're controlling the experiment. When you're looking, it's funny because when you're actually sitting back watching the play, because like you say, it's playing itself out. This stuff, one, has already happened, and you get that sense of awareness, like it's playing itself out. You know this, but you also have and really that's part of the isolated consciousness, by the way, whether we're aware of it or not. But you're standing back now. It's like you're watching it as if you're watching a movie. Whereas before you weren't aware, you were actually in the movie and you didn't fucking know it. You were one of the characters in the movie. But now it's like you're the director, the producer, the composer. You're watching this shit.
You're the puppet master.
Yeah, puppet master, whatever the fuck you want to call it. That's how you got to look at this thing. And that's what I mean. That's another good analogy to get people to see when the understanding and awareness kicks in. That's what you feel like. And you get this too. How many times we look at other people and go, not to be judgmental, but we just go, God damn, they just don't fucking get it, man. You know what I mean? Like that's part of that, that moment of awareness. Like you're like, okay, they're just, and sometimes you just got to, shrug it off and just keep it moving. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, it comes back to that whole thing when you get, like, if you are basically arguing with a person or someone is trying to force something down your throat, you get to a point. I mean, after 18 years of EFI, I'm not going to keep telling somebody the same thing. You're not going to have me sitting there divining for hours and talk about, oh, I'll come back tomorrow. No, you can say what the hell you want. The bottom line is I see what's going on here. You're in denial. You don't want to own up to what's happening here. You see what it is. You just want to put it over there and say, okay, I'm going back to church because I don't want to deal with it. No, fuck you. Because they're not going to have me sitting up here throwing shells for hours and saying, oh, is it this, is it that? No, get the frick out of here, man.
Well, see, people like that, they're waiting to hear what they want to hear. And that's why they'll keep you at bay. Look, I keep telling them, it's when you're doing stuff like that, it's not about what you want to hear. It's about what you need to hear. It's the same thing with wants and needs. See, people like that, they're not hearing what they want to hear. So they want you to validate it. They want you to say to them what they really want to hear in their mind. And then when you're not saying it, then they run from it. But they're only doing themselves a disservice. But anyway, having said that, I didn't realize it was getting this late. I got a couple things I got to do before I retire for the evening. I have to be up in 4 hours. So we're gonna end this puppy. But real quick, we'll be on Thursday evening. Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum will be on the show live. So get your questions ready. Take advantage when he's here. Question him about his work. See what motivates him. So maybe that can inspire and help you. So we will be back live Thursday night, Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum. The following week on the 25th, we will have Brother Val Cadman back on. And probably in between there and May, I want to try to get some of you sisters back on, like Sister Only. I know I'm going to get Priestess Asset back on. Maybe if Raven's not too busy, she hasn't done a show in a while. Maybe she can come up with something creative if we're privileged. And she's not in a rotten ass mood. Let me stop.
Yeah, Raven, exactly. You need to get down with us, sis.
So we will have some of that stuff coming up. But let's focus first on this Thursday. I got some stuff I plan on going into next month. You guys will see that once we're done with next week and the ritual at the end of the month. We're gonna move into another level of shit. And for all the things, you see it in the box. If you need to contact me, the classes, upcoming events, any of the things we talked about in the video in the beginning, you see the email in the description box. All right.
See the email in the description box. One moment before you end this.
Oh shit! Look who's back.
That's right. She better come back. That's right, my female sis.
Jack, no, I'm a very sweet person, people. I'm not mean. I'm really not. I am really
Butterflies, man.
sweet. I
Butterflies.
am kind. I am nice. I really am. Marvin can tell you. Okay.
Just
But
don't
one
get too close
thing,
to headbutt you.
Yeah. Yo, don't get too close. She'll headbutt you, then jolly stomp you.
I'm not mean, guys. But follow the Instagram page.
Yeah.
Primordial Chaos 9. Follow that. You get all your updates, upcoming shows. You know, if you're not, you can get it on YouTube as well. But follow the show. You get all your updates.
It's much better in detail on the Instagram. You know me. I ain't got no social media platform skills, so it's not front.
Yeah, if y'all see posts and y'all see them disappear. Yeah, if y'all see posts and see them disappear, that is why.
I'll put some up there. She'll tell me it's whack, and she takes it down and shit.
But also Facebook. Okay. And just follow the Facebook page. Tell your peeps about it. I'm really a nice person. People don't let him. I'm really
Everybody
nice.
loves you, Raven. There's only one like you. We could never find another.
All I can say is, like Jack said,
damn straight.
All I'm saying is, like Jack said, you get too close. It's like Jack said, get one of them helmets that the kids used to wear on the short bus. So you don't get that headbutt. At least you get one of them short bus helmets. You're good to go, man. Good to go.
Leave me alone.
Leave. Remember Harry's kids? Stop. All right, stop. I don't want to get no hate emails.
And the professor is coming on, as Brother Benitez stated, and all of you scientific minds and psychologist majors out there, come on and have a discussion with the good doctor. He has a wealth of knowledge.
Start formulating questions now. This way, when the doctor gets on, you can ask when he gets there.
There you go.
There you go.
All right, people. I appreciate it. Everybody, great questions. Appreciate the callers. Good dialogue. And we'll see everybody Thursday night. Peace, love, hair grease, hot dogs, frankfurters, and all that good shit.